It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Yeah. First, you see that headline. I know people, some Blues fans said, Otto Stenberg's going down to Springfield. What gives here? He's been one of their best players, and you guys touched on it. Yeah, there's a rule. I think it's if he plays that 19th game, then he will not be eligible to play for Springfield during the Olympic break, and the Blues certainly don't want him sitting out for 3 weeks, want him on the ice. So they're going to send him down to Springfield, avoid that 19th game, and have him available for the Thunderbirds during those 3 weeks.
I'm an idiot. Plain and simple. I'm an idiot. I said it yesterday on the show. Someone was like, oh, do you think he could get sent down because he was scratched in the skate yesterday? And I said, no, I don't see that happening. He's playing too well. Why would the Blues send him down? We ended the show, and boop, Alex, you're an idiot. Stenberg sent down to the minor leagues. That's how it goes sometimes when you're a hockey guy. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. How about a round of applause for Bradford Bruns, ladies and gentlemen?
Coming out of the bullpen.
This guy not only comes out of the bullpen, but like with an hour before the show, BK's sick. I found out early this morning, late last night, however you want to view it. We weren't sure if he was actually out or not, and then so when Ryder reached out to Bradford comes in out of nowhere.
I was afraid that it would be a game time is on time situation, gentlemen, but we made it. We're good to go. You've got to pull yourselves out of the doldrums of late January.
Doldrums meaning the snow tower that's in front of your house. I don't know how I made it out of mine. I'm glad you made it out of yours, and I hope everyone else is still being safe out there. So Otto Stenberg sent to the minor leagues yesterday. He won't be with the Blues. As it stands right now, the lines from practice yesterday look like the lines that will be taking place later on tonight, which means Fabry is back in the lineup. There is a chance, as we'll update you once Jim Montgomery speaks with the media in about 15 to 20 minutes, but there's a chance Oscar Sundqvist could play tonight. Robert Thomas potentially, as both are on the ice this evening, which, T-Bone, makes sense to me why Otto Stenberg was sent down. JR, I thought, broke it down perfectly on the Fast Lane yesterday. He'll join us at about 11:30 this afternoon. This was also the text that I got yesterday about Otto Stenberg being sent down. So the rule is if a player plays 16 of your last 20 scheduled games before the Olympic break, he is entitled to having the Olympic break off. That 20-game window for us would begin on the Tampa Bay game all the way on the 22nd of December, all the way up until the last game before the Olympic break. So Stenberg played 15 of those games, and if he played the 5 more, then he would have not been able to go down to the AHL. He could have entitled himself to say it's the Olympic break, so I get that off. So instead, the Blues made the decision for him and sent him down to the minor leagues. I'll preface what I'm about to say in terms of sending him down. I don't like the idea of it. I think you keep him up at the NHL level because he has been performing so well. He looks like he belongs, and what's the best tools to build your toolkit before next season when you're a full-time NHLer? It's get NHL reps. With that being said, I understand this. This is the asset management that Curbs always talks with us about, that Larry Plow used to speak of. If one of Sundqvist, Thomas, or Suter comes back, you're fine. If 2 of them come back, you have to make another roster move. And the easiest path was sending a guy down to the American Hockey League and not have to lose any players. And I know people's retort is, it's Robbie Fabry. Who cares?
That's my retort.
Here's the other factor into it. With Otto Stenberg, you want him playing as many games as possible. It's not like he's going to be sitting around for 5 days until the Olympic break starts. He goes down to the American Hockey League. He's going to be playing, Steve Ott said yesterday, top line minutes, power play, penalty kill. Every situation, he is going to be the guy in Springfield. So he's going to play from now until the end of the Olympic break. And then once the Olympic break is over, my assumption, Otto Stenberg's going to be back at the NHL level and play out the remainder of the season with the NHL team. You want development for these guys, and it's just reps. And I totally understand people's upset saying, well, yeah, but I want reps at the NHL level. Guys, to me, he looks like he fits at the NHL level. He looks like he's going to be a top 6 forward for you moving forward. But for now, you don't want him sitting around for 3 weeks. You want him playing as many games as possible. So as much as I dislike it, I understand where they're coming from. T-Bone does not.
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, I understand why they did it. I understand the paper transaction, making sure he plays for 3 weeks. I mean, everything you said there, he fits in the NHL. He belongs in the NHL. Go to Springfield. Come on. it's more valuable, in my opinion, for him to be up here for the final, I think it's 5 games before the winter break, if I'm not mistaken, than it is for him to be down in Springfield for the extra 7 he gets to play, right? That's where I would come at this from. They clearly don't think so. They think it's better for him to play through the winter break. I actually don't think it would have been the worst case scenario if he had 3 weeks off, right? He's earned that opportunity. I think 5 extra games at the NHL is more beneficial to him than being down in Springfield, and there's no concern about Dvorsky, who's going to be getting 3 weeks off as a guy that's going to be developing here at the NHL level. Their focus should be on the development at the NHL level for the remainder of the season. I was thinking of this, Matt DeFranks, who does a great job for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, wrote a piece, I think it was yesterday, about the things to watch for the rest of the way for the St. Louis Blues. And outside of trade conversations, it was the young guys. Well, now one of those guys is going to be down in Springfield for the next 12 games or something along those lines at the AHL level. It's not the biggest deal in the world. It's not something that I'm coming in here extremely upset about. I just don't personally get it. I think it is more valuable to be getting these reps at the NHL, where a guy like him, and I think we've talked about this before, being in a league that has such great structure like the NHL is actually better for him than being in the wild, wild west that is the AHL, where there is no structure, where we see this all the time with guys where you look at their numbers and you go, man, that guy, you think that guy's an NHL? He's like a -20 on the ice. And then he gets up here and he's a plus. And you look and go, well, what happened? Well, the structure's better, right? He fits better into a system where there is more structure. He can be more sound defensively, be more sound offensively than it is to go down to the AHL, where it is basically just pond hockey most of the time.
Yeah, and I understand that. The other elements, too, I wonder what the Blues were thinking is, look, developmentally, we can let them go play with Steve Ott for a little bit. And I do think they value that now with Steve Ott and the minors to play with those. But, again, I understand it. I understand the frustration. To me, it's just the asset management. Yeah, it's Robbie Fabry, but they don't want to lose Robbie Fabry because it's a body. And if the trade deadline is going the way they think it's going and that we think it's going, there's going to be a lot of open spots to be filled if they move on from Shen and if they move on from Matthew Joseph or Oscar Sundqvist or Pius Suter or Justin Falk or even a Kyrou or a Thomas. There's going to be bodies to fill, and at that time, you're going to need players like Robbie Fabry who can play in a middle 6, top 6. This was the other thing that they brought up on the text line, which I completely forgot when you asked me in there about Dvorsky. Dvorsky's not getting the time off because he's at the Olympics. So that's their mindset. I don't think
they would have sent him down either because I think he's reached the game mark.
Yeah, he might not have been able to go down there regardless because he's played so many. But in their eyes, it's probably, hey, he's the NHLer right now. I think they believe that with Otto Stenberg. But it's also just that asset management of getting more reps for them. And again, I think they also view this as a bad season. And as good as Otto Stenberg looks, let's just continue on the track we're at right now. Development of the younger guys, letting the top guys play in top-line situations. I mean, Stenberg was playing on the third line the other night against the LA Kings. So they obviously were like, yeah, you know what, it's dipped a little bit. Otherwise, he'd still be on that top line for them. But you're also playing for a top pick in the draft, if I can say it that way. And Stenberg's a good player, but you need the development. And now you put a Robbie Fabry in that role. So, again, you're going to see him. I think he plays a total of 11 games with the Thunderbirds from now until the end of the Olympic break. So 11 games versus the 5 that he would have played and then sat around for a couple of weeks. Not like he's going to be sitting on a couch binging Netflix. He's probably going to be skating. But, you want him to play. And then once the Olympic break is over, you get into the post-NHL Olympics, and then you're playing full throttle top 6 position for the rest of the way going into the offseason. So the other factor into this, and again, we're still waiting to find out what the lines look like, but Robert Thomas was on the ice today. Oscar Sundqvist was on the ice today. Pius Suter was on the ice yesterday, as well as Dylan Holloway. It sounds like Jim Montgomery said yesterday that Dylan Holloway is probably going to get shut down until after the Olympics, but it's really up to him. Pius Suter might be back next week. Thomas and Sundqvist, it's kind of a day-to-day situation. They're getting healthier. Here's my question to you, T-Bone, and to Blues fans out there. Between now and the Olympic break / trade deadline, which is March 6th, I think they play like a week or 10 days before they go into that trade deadline after the Olympics. Do you feel like there's anything individual players can show you or do on the ice to make you say, you can't trade that guy? Shen, Falk, Kyrou, Thomas. Those are the 4 guys I think are on the, for lack of a better phrase, chopping block when it comes to do they move them out? anything that those guys can do that would say, nope, you know what? I've changed my opinion. You need to keep these guys, not sell them for whatever you're going to get in return.
Not for me. I think everything that you've needed to see from this team you have seen already up until this point, including from the players themselves. If someone makes me the Godfather offer for a Thomas or a Kyrou, I'm willing to make that move, right? I think you have to start really considering moving on from parts of this core. Shen and Falk, nothing's changed for me. Like, that is just, they don't fit into the timeline, right? Like, there's no scenario for me where you definitely are keeping those guys. It really comes down to those core players. Thomas, Kyrou. I would throw Booch in here, but I just don't think you're going to be able to move off that contract, so I'll set him aside. To me, I'm listening on those guys. Nothing's going to change. I get it. Kyrou's played really well. We talked about him yesterday. He's got 7 points in the last 7 games. Nothing's changed for me. I think you're looking at this core saying just something for some reason is not working for this group. They had a hot stretch for 20, 25 games at the end of last season that got them to the playoffs. I don't care if they start playing well here as well. I think you have to seriously consider moving on from them. So, no, my answer is my mind's been made up. Nothing can change over the final, 10 games before we get to the trade deadline.
That's where I'm at as well, with the exception of Robert Thomas. Robert Thomas is the one for me that, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but on the ice, he has not looked like the player we all thought. I do know he's been dealing with an injury that's basically been nagging him all season. So if Robert Thomas took this time off to get healthier and he comes back healthy and looks the part, that could sway my decision in terms of, I don't know if I move a 26-year-old top center if they project it to be that way. Kyrou, Shen. I've had my opinion on Shen, and we've never really gotten to it on the show. There's a part of me, a scenario where I look at this and say, I don't know if I would trade Shen. I don't know if you get back in return what the worth is of a guy that understands how to play a certain style of hockey, but I can understand people just wanting to be done. Justin Falk, I think people have, their ships have sailed on that as well. I also think front office is in the same line of step of thinking that you are, T-Bone. I think they look at this and say, we've done enough of this. It's been 4 years of underperforming with the exception of the last month of the regular season. We need new faces in new positions, so let's ship them out.
And that's why, you mentioned, with Thomas, if Thomas starts playing well because maybe it was an injury, that maybe you look back on this because it's a 26-year-old center. I'm sorry, I'm still listening. And the reason I'm doing it, who the face of the, I would say face of the franchise or the face of this retool was? It was Robert Thomas. And look at where it's gotten you. It's gotten you to where you're picking potentially top 3 in this year's NHL draft. And outside of that 20-game stretch last year, this core's just not been good enough. So, to me, I've decided you're listening on all of them at this point.
And I can understand that because I think the retort to me saying he's been injured is saying, well, what's been the excuse the last couple of seasons at the first half to where he's underperformed? I'm still listening on everybody because the franchise needs a shift. The organization needs a shift. The question is, are you going to make it worth my while? Because I'm not just selling off Robert Thomas to sell off Robert Thomas. So, again, if you missed it, Otto Stenberg was sent down to the American Hockey League yesterday. It sounds like Thomas, Sundqvist, and Suter won't be playing tonight, but Jim Montgomery will give the full confirmation in just a couple of minutes, so we'll update you there. Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic, who is at the Blues Morning Skate right now, will join us in about 20 minutes. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We're live up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL, so you could join in on the graveyard chat where there are a ton of people already in there. iRock is there, J-Wise, Bill Marsh, Cat Dad Gamer, Bacon Wrapped Wiener. Everyone is over in the graveyard, and you could join us there. Our studio cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. Coming up next, Jim Bowden gave his prediction on the Brendan Donovan situation. And it's starting to make me wonder, T-Bone, and honestly make me a little concerned. Are the Cardinals just overvaluing Brendan Donovan? So we'll touch on that and Heim's opinion on Brendan Donovan coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Miss the Blues game? Want to hear the highlights? Need player reaction? Want more analysis and opinion? It's all here on Curbside, your next day post-game podcast with a voice of the St. Louis Blues, Chris Kerber. Catch new episodes of Curbside every morning after every Blues game on 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app.
Curbside is presented by Blue Note Roofing. Roofing, siding, and gutters. Your St. Louis roofing experts. Visit BlueNoteRoofingSTL.com for a free inspection. And by Bellman Automotive. For the best price on a new Buick, GMC, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, or a used vehicle. Shop Bellman in Troy online and at Bellman.com. You can't do better than Bellman.
Tanner Hendrickson here in Super Bowl 60 is less than 2 weeks away, and that deserves a sportsbook built for the moment. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 60, and that puts you right in the center of the biggest game of the year. Look, I'm looking ahead already. It's not too early to start putting together that parlay for you, so I'm going to go Seahawks -4.5. I'm going JSN 100-plus receiving yards, and I'm going to take JSN for an anytime touchdown as well. And how about this? With DraftKings, they have got your back this NFL postseason with early exit protection. So if the player goes down in the first half in your eligible NFL prop bet, you still get paid out in cash immediately once your bet settles. No bonus bets, no waiting. And if you're new to DraftKings, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. So download that DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use my code TANNER, that's code TANNER, to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 plus. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer.
ESPN has your shot to score a signed puck autographed by Blues forward Alexei Toropchenko.
Toropchenko drives the middle of the ice, shoots it up, scores! Alexei Toropchenko!
Enter to win that Alexei Toropchenko signed puck right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
As much as we want to keep our ears open, we also want to make sure we're doing right by the organization. In this case, if we were to contemplate something with Donnie, obviously we'd put a pretty high price tag on it, given all those things that I said about the player he is and how much he means to us. Certainly not something where we're necessarily looking to do it. Again, just us being responsible and doing our jobs, especially given where we are and all those goals that we have over the long haul.
That's Chaim Bloom, Cardinals president of baseball operations, on KMOX Sunday, speaking of the Brendan Donovan market and kind of where things stand for the Cardinals. Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. So I teased this segment. I could have teased it better. I said, are the Cardinals overvaluing Brendan Donovan? It's pretty obvious they are. Should they be overvaluing Brendan Donovan is the better way to look at it. And I think at some point, T-Bone, you have to cave a little bit, which sounds awful to say, but this was Jim Bowden's piece over on The Athletic. Brendan Donovan is the best trade asset remaining for the Cardinals, and although they're not looking to trade him, they will if they get the right return. I've been told by several executives the asking price is too high to consider at this point, but that could drop between now and opening day. He's a very versatile player, has played all infield and corner outfield positions in the major league during his career, well known for all the baseball cliches we like to throw at players like gamer, dirtbag. I've never heard that cliche before. Winner.
Never heard that in a good term.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever labeled a guy a dirtbag, but go for it. And scrappy. He fits with every team in baseball, including the Cardinals, who aren't trading him unless they can, quote, win the trade. I agree with what they're trying to accomplish. You want to get the best return possible, and you want to overvalue your player to make sure you get the best return possible. But at some point, you do have to start looking at it with realistic eyes, in my opinion, and say, all right, nobody's caving on us asking for, I'm throwing this out there, 2 of their best top prospects. They're not caving. None of the other teams are caving. So we keep them, or we call them back and adjust this trade before we go into the spring training and opening day. And that's where I'm at. I still remain adamant, T-Bone, that you can't come back with Brendan Donovan. And I know people think that, well, just bring him back. He's a winning player and you want him around your guys. That's fine. But what you think you can get for him now, you absolutely won't get for him in season or next season. It's going to continue to drop. So if a team, let's say the Seattle Mariners, the Cardinals are saying, we want 2 of your best guys, and they're saying no, then why not call back and say, look, you're not going to cave. We don't want to cave. Can we get your best prospect? Let's lower the asking price a little bit. I'm still getting a top 50, top 60 player in a prospect in all of baseball in return, but I'm not just going to sit here and say, well, nope, they're not giving me their 2 best prospects that are top 100 players, so I'm going to bring Brendan Donovan back. I don't think that's healthy for the team.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see if Heim's going to cave or not on this scenario, because I think he holds strong, and I still think somebody's going to come to them and meet the asking price. If not the asking price, get like 80, 90% of what they originally were looking for. He might give in a little bit, but I think if you're him, like I think you have to continue to keep this asking price high and continue to have that threat of we will go into spring training with him, because I don't necessarily think it's the worst thing in the world. Now, will the value go down when he gets to spring training and if he plays through the first half of the season? Yeah, but you still should be able to get a decent return for him when we get to the trade deadline, in my opinion. So I think if you're Chaim Bloom, you've got to continue to play this giant game of chicken, which he's been doing all offseason long with teams like the Giants, like the Mariners, to try and see if he can get their best prospects or the 2 prospects that he really wants. Because Donovan's a guy that, to me, you're not selling low on. Now, are they probably overvaluing him? Yeah, I think there's probably some of that going on right now. But I think you have to continue to ask for a high price because you're talking about a cheap, versatile player that can play multiple positions, as you had mentioned there. He was an all-star this past season. He's a Gold Glove caliber defender. He's a good leadoff hitter or a guy that gets high on-base percentage, if you don't want to view him even at leadoff. But he could be a 5 or 6 hole hitter for a very good contending team. And he allows versatility across the board because of, okay, well, you think, well, maybe we've got a second baseman that we think will be here by next year, right? Okay, well, Donovan can go play third or go play in the outfield for you while you have him for these 2 years. And he's cheap, by the way, which is the other thing that a lot of these teams really like. I still think because of that, all those things I just said, you have to hold this high asking price. And I think Chaim's going to continue to hold out and see if somebody will get desperate. He's the one that's sitting in the leverage seat. To me, you're not calling the other team saying, okay, we give in, we're willing to take on a little bit less in this offer. You wait for these teams to keep coming to you because as we get closer to spring training, the more and more like the Jerry DePotos, the Buster Posey start to look at their depth chart and go, man, we really do not have a second baseman. The more likely they will become to really cave into these offers.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you don't show your hand, so it's probably bad negotiating skills by me if you're calling up the team and saying, look, let's lower the price a little bit. But what if they don't? What if they don't call you back and say, no, we'll move forward with it and we'll address this in season? Grady texted in over on our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. How can you say the price will continue to drop if he plays every day and bats 300? His stock goes up. Sure, if he bats 300 and plays every day, then the stock goes up. But the stock goes down because he's getting older and he's not going to be this cheap. He's $5.8 million right now. He's got 1 more year of arbitration, and then he's an unrestricted free agent at 31.
Yeah, the reason that his stock could go down, when I said go down, it's not significant until you get to the offseason. But when you get to the trade deadline, now you only have him for half a season. Compared to right now, you would get him not just for 2 postseason runs, but 2 full regular seasons, which teams really value.
Yeah.
Once you start to play in season, you get to the deadline, teams will still value him. It might knock off a little bit of that price because I get him for 2 postseason runs and half of a regular season.
The 314 is where my mindset is. They said, I don't think we're sitting in a leverage seat with Donovan. I think everybody knows the reality that Donovan is a great player for the Cardinals. Donovan is an average or a good player on any other team that's about to contend. He's not a great fit that's going to bring you back a king's ransom in return. That's where my concern is at. I feel like there's a little bit of imposter syndrome to where the Cardinals feel like they're holding a star and they're saying, we've got this guy that changes the look of your lineup. And I'm not trying to downplay what Brendan Donovan is. He is an all-star. He is a significantly good player. He's not an average player. He's got a gold glove. He's been an all-star. He's a hell of a hitter. He will make a team closer to being a World Series contender. But it's not as if you're trading a guy that's going to bring you back 2 or 3 top prospects in return. I think 2 might be asking a lot for Brendan Donovan, which it obviously is because no trade has taken place. And at what point do you say, fine, we're going to come back with them? Because at that point, I think you make a mistake. You asked me in the office, T-Bone, if the offseason were to end now, if spring training were to begin and the Cardinals said, hey, Brendan Donovan is not getting traded, we're bringing it back with them, what grade would you give them?
Yeah, I think if the offseason was over, and I'll even assume like they add like a right-handed hitter, right? Because I think that's in the range of outcomes for them, like an Austin Slater. I would still give Heim a B for his first offseason. Now, some people may think I'm grading kind of high there, but the fact that he was able to get some interesting returns, some major league-ready pitching in return this offseason in trades of guys that had pretty significant dollar figures on them in Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras, also guys that, by the way, had no trade clauses, and Nolan Arenado. The fact that he was able to move off, include money in some of those deals, and get some interesting prospects back in return, I would give him a B, because I thought for sure, depending on how much you're willing to eat, they were going to have to dump some of these and end up with just a bunch of things that you looked at and said, man, these are a whole bunch of lottery tickets. He was able to convince ownership to pay some money down and get some decent players in return. And then he went out and signed Dustin May, which I felt like they had to go out and sign at least a starter that had some upside they could potentially trade at the deadline. I would give Chaim Bloom a B, even if he doesn't complete the Donovan trade. I think depending on the Donovan trade, what it looks like, it could be anywhere from a B+ to an A- this offseason, even an A potentially.
Yeah, I think if he could trade Brendan Donovan, it's an A. And I think if he can't, I'd give it a C. Because I think it's average. Like, you're right. It should probably be higher in my opinion, because to get something back, not just something, but a decent return for Sonny Gray and for Wilson Contreras, that's a win. I didn't think that was possible. Nor did I think Nolan Arenado would get moved was possible. And he gave up like $30 million of it, but you still got rid of him. This Brendan Donovan thing, it irks me a little bit. It's hard for me to look at the Cardinals, who are trying to rebuild, that are holding an asset that a lot of teams want, but the Cardinals are saying, well, he's too valuable for us to trade for just that. Now, this is me not knowing, like maybe they're only offering a not top 100 prospect. And sure, I can understand you holding on to it, but man, it sounds as if teams want him, and it sounds as if teams are willing to pay, just not the price that the Cardinals are offering. And at some point, I think you have to look at it and say, maybe we're asking for too much because Brendan Donovan is not what we think he is versus what they think he is. And man, if we can still get a top 50 prospect in all of baseball back in return, I feel like that's a win for the Cardinals.
Would it change your mind? I'm just curious, because I wouldn't do it, but I'm anti-extension. If they don't trade him, but they did extend Donovan, the thing that BK talks about, you either trade him or you extend him. There's no in between, the way BK views it. Would that change your grade on the offseason if they gave him like a 5-year deal, for example? I don't know what the dollar figure would be, but it wouldn't be absurd.
No, I don't think so. I think it would still be a C. I think I'd be more frustrated if you extended him, because it doesn't match the timeline of what you're telling us. It doesn't match the idea of, hey, we're rebuilding, we're trying to bring in as many assets as possible. This is the best trade chip you're probably going to have as Chaim Bloom in terms of rebuilding. And Brendan Donovan could warrant you something significant back in return. It's just, are you asking for too much? Are you asking for their 3 best prospects thinking that you're going to get that? Because that's playing too much hardball.
Yeah, it's hard for me to answer because I graded a little higher than you did.
Yeah.
I think I would probably lean towards giving them I'd go B+. I don't know if I'd go A. I would upgrade my grade a little bit because it makes me think they're closer than they're leading on.
And
right?
they could prove me wrong with
instead
that.
Instead of a rebuild, they're doing what the Blues thought they were doing, which was retooling, to where in 3 years they're looking at this going, yeah, in that third year of the Donovan deal, we're actually right on a JJ Wetherholt, we're right on a Joshua Baez, we're right on Liam Doyle, and all of a sudden you're looking at them going, man, they might have something here, along with the guys at the major leagues taking steps with Burley, Herrera, Donovan's a part of that big 3 for you. JJ Wetherholt moves into that big 3/big 4. Like, if they extend Donovan, it would tell me they seem to think that this is going to turn around a little bit quicker. If they just hold on to him and there is no typical Cardinals press conference at spring training because of a contract extension, then I would have some question as to, okay, if you don't think you're that close and you just brought him back, did you overplay your hand this entire offseason?
Yeah, and that's my concern with this. So, Tanner Hendricks, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get to questions and answers coming up in 15. You could text us 314-399-9646, or you can send us a question over on our YouTube chat at 101 ESPN STL. And we'll have Jeremy Rutherford join us from Blues Morning Skate coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your shot to score 2 tickets to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras, Saturday, February 14th in Soulard. The Blues Alumni Experience puts you in a heated tent right on the parade route with premium drinks, great food, live music, and most importantly, meet and greets with St. Louis Blues legends. Find all the ticket info and enter to win free passes to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
The Blues and Stars back at it at Enterprise Center. Good morning. It's Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. For the second time in under a week, St. Louis and Dallas will drop the puck this evening. 7 o'clock marks that time at Enterprise Center. 6 o'clock pregame right here on 101 with Alex Ferrario. Jeremy Rutherford joining us in mere minutes for more talk regarding this particular matchup. More action downtown tonight. The number 21 Billikens also in action. They will take on George Washington. Most recently, the Bills dump trucked St. Bonaventure over the weekend, 97-62. The Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. It's time for the Rutherford Report with our Blues insider, Jeremy Rutherford, on 101 ESPN.
JR is brought to you by Evergreen Wealth Strategies, helping everyday people every day. Visit evergreen-ws.com.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. It is BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. We'll do questions and answers coming up in about 10 minutes or so. So send your questions over to our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Also our YouTube chat, The Graveyard at 101 ESPN STL. But now we head to our guest line to welcome in Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic as he joins us now fresh off of a morning skate, the Collier and Thompson guest line. JR, how are you?
Doing all right. Yeah, just standing outside this Dallas Stars morning skate, and I guess they're working on rimming the puck because I almost caught a couple of them, so I better step away.
I thought you were going to say you're standing outside, and I'm like, okay, well, this is dumb, JR. Hang up, go get in your car, turn your heat on, and do this interview. JR, first things first, man, I know that you tweeted it out, Robert Thomas, Oscar Sundqvist on the ice today. I know Pius Suter was out there yesterday. Any word from Jim Montgomery on any changes to the line combinations or players getting into the lineup tonight?
No, it doesn't look like today's going to be the day. Thomas, Sundqvist, Suter, all three out there again today. Thomas and Sundqvist out for morning skate. But Jim Montgomery said yesterday the timetable still to be determined. You know, now the question becomes, do you try to put a guy like Thomas back in the lineup before the break? You know, I think there's a chance we might see him. I didn't know if he'd be up and running prior to this break. So just 5 games left. They're going to take it easy with them, and I think take the break into account when making the decision about whether they return. But based on them being out there today and Suter skating for a while now, I think there's a good chance we could see one or more in these last 5 games.
So just a follow-up on that, Jaron. You know, I know Jim Montgomery said the other day that the kind of decision's up to Dylan Holloway with this high ankle sprain. He's passed all of the tests. He decides if he wants to come back, but you're going to have that wear and tear with that injury. Same can be said with Pius Suter and even a Robert Thomas who's had a nagging injury for so long. If they get to the point where the doctors and the medical staff say, like, hey, look, these guys are fine to play. They're going to deal with some bumps and bruises, but they're fine to play. Wouldn't you imagine that the coaching staff and the team would err on the side of caution in terms of returning these guys because the team has struggled so much rather than re-injure or re-aggravate something?
Yeah, I think there's a chance, but I think if these guys, and, you know, we don't know the specific details of, you know, are they 95%, are they 98%? You know, I think if there's games remaining and they're feeling well and they're going out and skating and reporting back to the athletic trainer, Ray Borelli, that they're feeling well, you know, I think there's a chance. The one that sticks out in that group is Holloway with that high ankle sprain, because you just hear, you know, so many people talk about it's worse than a break, and, you know, it maybe could be a year before you feel back to, you know, yourself again. And so I think that's the one they're probably going to be most careful with. But these others, you know, I just think that, you know, if they feel they're ready to go, we're going to see them.
Jerry, we were talking about this as part of our open today. And, you know, you've said this before on the show and on the Last Minute Blues podcast that, you know, hey, look, Army is at least open-minded to just about anything at this point right now. Is there anything for guys that are a part of the current core, I would say, in Kyrou and Thomas, that they could do before the trade deadline, or even if they're not moved for the rest of the season, that might change Army's tone on quit listening to offers on those guys?
I don't think so. It's a good question. You know, I think that if you're the Blues, you know the players that they are, you know the history, you know the production, you know there's been some inconsistency. I don't know that you could go on a 10-game heater prior to the trade deadline, and then all of a sudden everybody comes together and says, you know what, maybe we ought to rethink this and not trade these guys. I don't know that, after 6-7 years in the league, a 2-week, 3-week span is going to convince you that, somebody is a different type of player. So I think, the way I look at it, I don't think that they're actively shopping Robert Thomas in terms of making calls to move him at all costs. I know that's not the situation. With Kyrou, all the speculation's been there for a number of years. If there's a team that's interested and they wow the Blues with an offer, and I think, and when I say that, you got to have somebody scoring your goals, right? So if you're going to move a Jordan Kyrou, I realize he's not scoring right now, but he has in the past, who's coming up to step into this lineup and score some goals. Now, you'll also see some reports out there that the Blues are looking for, a defenseman to potentially bring in with one of these trades if they trade one of those core guys too. So I wouldn't rule anything out. I just, to get back to your question, I think that if the Blues have seen for months now that they want to make a move with one of those younger-ish core players, I think they would make it if the deal was there.
On that topic, Jer, we just had a conversation about the Cardinals and Chaim Bloom potentially overvaluing one of his best trade options. Do you feel like Doug Armstrong has gotten stuck in that area of overvaluing what he has on his team and not being able to pull the trigger because of it?
Yeah, it's another good one. And I think he's talked about that over the years. I think the Blues, even prior to Doug taking over a long time ago now, right? But, we're kind of guilty of that. I think even Bernie Miklasz probably referred to it as Fabergé eggs with the Cardinals. And, maybe that was the case with the Blues too. A guy like Patrick Berglund, you get to a point where, is he going to be the player that you thought he was going to be? I remember Paul Kariya telling me that Berglund was going to be a 100-point guy in the league. And so you hang on to players waiting for that potential, and then that potential never develops, and now all of a sudden you can't trade the player for probably something that you could have traded him if you would have moved him early on. So, I don't know that the Blues have necessarily done that, even with a guy like Kyrou. When you talk about 37 goals, 30-plus goals, 3 seasons in a row, leading the team and scoring, you think that he's going to take that next step and be the 40, 45-goal guy, and that hasn't happened. So I don't know that they've been too overprotective, and the one thing I'll say to help qualify that is we don't know what they've been offered. Like, people might want this player or that player traded 2 years ago, but what if they would accepted a deal that didn't make the team better, or the player that they got didn't develop into a player that either they or the team that traded them thought they were going to be? So, it's not an exact science. It's tough. That's why you got to be careful in these situations. And, I think the Blues are going to be active before the trade deadline, but I can't tell you whether it's just going to be the list of the Falks and the Shens and potentially a Jordan Binnington, or if we're going to see, a trade from that core.
Out of curiosity, JR, do you think Army is going to be active? You mentioned the trade deadline. Do you think he'll be active at all in the final week here before we get to the Winter Olympic roster freeze?
Yeah, I don't have any, knowledge on that, whether we're going to see something in 3 days or 3 days after they come back from the Olympics. But, all we can do is kind of lay the groundwork. And I think that with it known that players' salaries are going to count against the team's cap. If they acquire them before the Olympic break, they're going to count during the Olympic break. And so, does that steer a team away from making a move like that, tomorrow instead of waiting until they come back from the Olympics? It could. Does it take a couple more weeks to kind of hash out a trade? It could. So to me, if I were betting man, which I actually am,
Donovan, JR.
Yeah, you can't say that if you actually make bets, but if I were a betting guy, like, I would think that what's going to happen would transpire after they get back from the Olympics and obviously prior to that trade deadline.
So, JR, on the newsy side, and you did a phenomenal job breaking it down yesterday on the Fast Lane. Otto Stenberg getting sent down to the American Hockey League. The scenario makes sense. They want him available to play in those AHL games during the Olympic break. But from your perspective, does it make sense for the team to send a guy down who could still be getting more reps at the NHL level?
Yeah, I think it does. And by the way, this whole thing is a little bit confusing. I know they're always looking out for the players. The PA is always looking out for the players. If a guy has played so many games prior to the Olympic break, then he's entitled to his time off. My thing is, I want to see kind of quiet Otto Stenberg walk up to Doug Armstrong and say, "No, I'm entitled to my break. I'm going on vacation."
I'd love to see Doug's reaction to that.
Yeah, exactly. And so, your question, so I think that, a week or so away from the team, and he's down there with Springfield, who he's going to play, during the break with, he's just getting down there a little bit sooner. Does it hurt the Blues? Yes. He's one of their top 12 forwards, if not one of their top 6 or 7 best forwards in this last, couple months. But, by big picture, I don't think it's going to matter that he went to Springfield a week early. The question I would have, Alex, and we were talking about this today, is what if the Blues are second, third in the division? What if they're, occupying the number 1 wild card and you're sending out one of your better forwards so they can play during the break? Maybe they wouldn't have made that decision. Maybe they wouldn't have, but the situation that they're in at the bottom of the standings, I don't mind this decision. It keeps Stenberg playing during the break, and this is the rule that they had to deal with.
Yeah, to be 100% honest, if they're in that position, Stenberg's not down. In my opinion, he's here because he's helped you win. You get the break, and then you come back. One more on that, JR. How much of this do you think it comes into play of the development with Steve Ott being down in the AHL? I know you guys had a conversation with him yesterday, and, the one thing that I was tinfoiling with T-Bone in the office earlier today was, they've struggled with coaches in the AHL since Craig Berube. Drew Bannister struggled to kind of get those guys developing. Same can be said about Steve Konowalchuk. So are the Blues potentially looking at this as, look, Steve Ott's got the reins down in the AHL. Let's take advantage of a guy who's a head coach who can work with some of these younger players?
Yeah, Alex, I think they have a combination of a lot of things. And this is, listen, I've known Steve Ott for a while, as a player here in St. Louis and also as a coach. He's a phenomenal person to be around. And so a little bit biased here is, he's excited about the job. He's excited about being part of the Blues organization and helping develop these young guys. But if you step back and you think that Otto Stenberg is going to go down to Springfield and be on the ice talking to Steve Ott, who he was just with for the past couple months. Like, this isn't a situation where, a guy's going down to the minor league and, he hasn't played for the coach, so on and so forth. So, I think the Blues got the best of all kinds of worlds here with Steve Ott taking this job because of his experience, because of his, loyalty to the organization, because he's trying to get an NHL coaching job and he wants to go down and get those guys into the playoffs. Listen, I talked to Dylan Peterson for about 10 minutes yesterday. He's a forward, a Blues prospect playing with Springfield right now, and he just said that Steve Ott's been a ball of energy ever since he stepped foot in the facility. So I think this is a ton of good news for the Blues.
Yeah, love to hear it. JR, great reporting as always, man. Watch out for those stray pucks from Dallas, and we'll see you tonight at the arena.
If it was the Blues, I think they're trying to hit me, but I don't think I did anything against the Dallas guys.
That's good. They're not out for blood on you yet. Just yet, JR.
All right.
There you go.
See you, boys.
Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic. Appreciate him hopping on with us. And that's kind of where I'm at with the Stenberg. And I know we just touched on it, T-Bone, but, you're in a good spot. You're bad. You're continuing to play bad. It doesn't hurt you at all in this position in terms of development. But on the trade side of things, I think you asked a valid question. Do you try and pull the trigger sooner rather than later if there's offers on the table because of the market and where things stand? And we're going to talk about this a little bit later on in the show because right now, according to a couple of different NHL insiders, the Blues have the best assets on the trade market. Do you try and take advantage of that now, or do you remain patient and hope that it pays off for you down the road? That's the question that I think we'll have to ask once all of the dust settles when the trades actually take place. Tanner Hendricks and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We went long with JR. Let's get to your questions on the other side here on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
This is Nick Bukestad, and it's game day on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube chat at 101 ESPN STL. You can join the graveyard and put your questions over there with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Let's get to this one, guys. If Jordan Walker and Alec Burleson hit a combined 50-plus home runs this season, is that good enough to give them another year or a contract extension? Well, if they're hitting 50-plus, Burleson's got to hit 45.
Walker's got the power to do 20 if everything clicked.
Yeah, how many years have we been saying that if everything clicks?
Well, a lot.
Last year he hit 6. The year prior he hit 5.
What did he hit in the year he was really good?
16.
Yeah, okay, see, that's 20 homer power potential.
Cool. That was the rookie year where people didn't know much about him. I'll go off of the 2 years where people knew enough about him.
I agree. It's probably not going to happen.
Well, you just made it seem like that was a cruel thing to say.
What I was pushing back on is, like, he does have 20 homer power, right? Like,
okay.
Giving him only 15 felt a little cruel, but...
Sorry.
I think if it's kind of... He's got to separate him, but I would assume in that scenario it would be about 30-20 would be the way I would... With 30 going to Burley, to be clear. I don't know if that would... warrant a contract extension for Burley. He's going to be tough to value towards a contract extension, in my opinion, but I'm anti-extension. But here's why. We've seen over time now that teams just really don't value first basemen, right? It's like the goaltenders of the NHL for some reason. They don't seem to really value it, even though it's important to have a good first baseman. He's left-handed, which helps him, but it's really the only position they probably feel great about him playing. He's okay in the outfield, but you really just prefer him at first, so I don't think you'd give him a contract extension. But to Walker, on the point of would it give him another year, I think absolutely. I think it would earn him for sure another year at the helm of, okay, we're going to keep right field open for Jordan Walker. If he gets back to hitting 20 home runs like that texture was saying, which is what I think they're alluding to by saying those two combined for 50, he probably got back to what he was in that first season where he hit 276 and had a OPS plus of 113. That's good enough to be in right field.
50 is ambitious. Look, all of us would love it, but I would also not confuse, guys, Alec Burleson with being this classic tape measure home run type of guy. If he is somebody who winds up topping out at 21, as he did a couple of seasons ago, 18 1 year ago, 20 to 25, combined with being more of that line drive hitter, that's perfectly fine. If Walker can indeed grow into it, because for the foreseeable future, when opening day rolls around, obviously for the better part of 2025, barring some ridiculous swoon, he is going to be in there every single day. Hey, I would love 50, but if you get Walker back this season into that mode of around mid-teens and you're actually witnessing him putting the ball in play, that's what I want more than anything.
Yeah, Walker's just now in Gorman territory for me. I'm not going the what ifs anymore until I see it actually take place. From the 330, guys, what cup contending team would Thomas put them in a stronger position to win it all? I think we do this now with Robert Thomas because he hasn't been a consistent number one center, and we act as if he's not going to make any teams better. The answer is every team. Every team becomes a closer cup contender if you get Robert Thomas. Even if he's not a number one center, you know what wins in the Stanley Cup playoffs? Defense and depth down the middle. And Robert Thomas provides both of those. So, let's go through these real quick. Does Tampa get better with Robert Thomas on their team?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Does Carolina get better with Thomas on their team?
Yeah.
Does Detroit get better with Thomas on their team? Does Colorado improve?
Why don't you skip Buffalo?
Yeah, well, I mean...
What the hell?
We all know. Does Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas, Vegas, Edmonton, Ottawa, no. Yeah, the teams that aren't in playoff positions, they don't benefit from Robert Thomas because they've got other issues. So, yeah, every team would benefit from Robert Thomas, which is why I would imagine his name's out there. But you've got to get the best return possible. And this one from Beavis' Sports Performance. In a hypothetical trade scenario, would you trade Robert Thomas to Carolina for Alexander Nikishin and Jackson Blake? Yeah, that would be a starting point for me. For people that don't know, Nikishin...
I don't know, tell me.
Nikishin is he's a young Russian defenseman who has played the last few seasons over in the KHL. He's 24 years old. He's 6'3", 218 pounds. He's got 6 goals and 21 points and is a plus 13 playing third line minutes for Carolina right now. That's a starting point. Jackson Blake is another one who is a mid-tier, kind of middle 6 forward. He's got 16 goals and 31 points for Carolina right now, and he's 22 years old. That's a starting point. That's not the deal. That's a starting point. But yeah, I'm listening because if somebody's going to pay me a crazy deal for Robert Thomas, I'll pull the trigger. But I don't want to trade him. I'm trading up if it benefits me long term.
Yeah, and I think it just depends on how you view him, right? Like, I view Robert Thomas as a good player, even though I am more open to moving him of the 3 of us on the show. I'm willing to do it because I think he falls in that weird in-between of overqualified center, but just not good enough to be a true number 1 center, right? He's somewhere in that muddy middle to where, to the first question of if you move him to a cup contender, does he make them better? Absolutely, because he'd be an overqualified number 2. I fear that he might be falling victim to the Blues are asking him to do too much as their number 1 center. I think he might be better off slated as a number 2.
Yeah. Possibly. And some of those guys just are. That's why you always look for a really good number 2 so that your 1 and 2s can work together. Final one here. Guys, I keep seeing the reports that the Blues are in search of another defenseman if they move off of a guy like Kyrou or Robert Thomas. Why are they looking for defense? They need offense. The reason is I don't believe they feel set with their defense. And this goes back to Jeff Merrick on Friday with us. Teams that are awesome defensively win the Stanley Cup. Mm-hmm. And if I look at the Blues defense right now, I have 2 spots that I feel comfortable with. It's Broberg and Parayko. Jiricek is going to be here next year. That's another right-handed defenseman. So, and then you've got Mayu, who's still developing. I think he's going to be fine. I just don't know what his potential is because he's had his ups and downs. Your left side is kind of in flux. You have nothing in the minor leagues other than Theo Lindstein, and he's far away. Cam Fowler has struggled this year. If I'm the Blues, I look at this saying I need another top 4 defenseman. So, yeah, I'd love offense. I'd love a forward. I'd love a center. But I also need a defenseman. So if somebody's going to pay me that, I'll go out there and search for that. And they're also probably looking at this realistically of, look, if we're this bad, we're going to be drafting in the top 3, top 5. We'll get a forward at that position that can score.
Yeah, I think you're looking for another top 4 defenseman, and I think the left side is where you said it, where they're probably looking at it. Because I'm with you, Parayko, Broberg, you feel pretty good. I would put a little caution towards Parayko, not because I don't like him, just because he is getting older. Mm-hmm. But defensemen typically age pretty gracefully, so that's why I just would put a little caveat there. If you trade Falk, that right side opens up, but Jiricek's the guy that I would say you slot in there. The left side's where I'm looking at it going, okay, Tyler Tucker. I thought about asking this to JR. I think it's a little early to ask this. He's a guy that I am circling to say, hey, he's competing for his roster spot for next year.
Oh, 100%.
And then, like Fowler, I think they regret the Fowler extension already, right? That looks like he's probably going to be a third-pair defenseman. So, to me, you're looking for someone that's going to slide into the top 4 on that left side. So, yeah, they should be looking to upgrade defensively. They've got a lot of issues. Defense is just one of them.
Yeah, by the way, we talked about this last week when it was a report, but it's official now. City SC has traded João, am I pronouncing that?
Yeah.
João Klaus to the LA Galaxy, and in return, they're receiving $2.375 million in a cash-for-player trade. Again, we don't have to dive too deep into this, but because I think we made our statements known last week. Like, look, it sucks to see Klaus go because he was a DNA piece of that
original team,
that expansion team, and that had so much success that first year. But I think City is coming to terms with where they're at. You've had 2 underperforming seasons, and now you have to reset things and go out there and find a new core of players. City can't be the Vegas Golden Knights, where you just continue to churn out the best in the business. You got to go a different route. They've made changes in the front office. They've made changes to the coaching staff, and they are in the position where they have to make changes to the players.
Yeah, and I would add this, too. For the most part in soccer, there is a ton of roster turnover as well. Things hadn't been going well, so if you're City, yeah, you have to just kind of look and start, okay, how can we kind of reset everything? Klaus will always have the memories of his first season because he was unbelievable that year with them on that incredible run that they had. But they're at the point now where it is time to start churning through that roster.
All right, I'm on BK's clock management here. So coming up next, we'll do our 12 o'clock segment. At 12:10 is Jay. I know, it's terrible by me, but T-Bone brought this one up to me earlier. Kylie McDaniel over on ESPN had the player comps for some of these top prospects. Would you consider a success if JJ Wetherholt becomes this player? It might really surprise you. We'll touch on that next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I didn't even really make the connection when I mentioned Klaus getting traded away from City SC from the, I'm not even going to say the name, but on our Air Comfort Service text line said, boy, is it a rough time to be a St. Louis sports fan. We spend so much time talking Cardinals and Blues. Yeah. You even got the City SC soccer
hey, at
team
least the
that's
local
rebuilding.
colleges are at least solid at something,
Yeah,
right?
you told us Umsel. Huh?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Shout
that too.
out your team.
How about those Umsel Tritons women's basketball team? 25th in the land at the Division II level.
Oh, Mizzou, Alabama preview later? Maybe.
I'm not going to lie. That wasn't who I was referencing, but I'm glad we got them a shout out.
Local ties to all. Lindenwood basketball is just continuing to fight for one of those top spots.
Definitely was not talking about them either.
Nope. But we're going
I was thinking of Illinois being pretty good. SLU looks like they're going to be a tournament
team. 22, 23 now?
22, I think.
It was 22, wasn't it?
They did move up a smidge.
Is all the way up to number 21.
21. I knew they moved up a spot or two.
When you beat the Bonnies by 30 plus
Mizzou's
on the road,
on the bubble.
See? You keep that negativity to yourself, text line. It's not all that in St. Louis. Just the Cardinals, Blues, and City are all rebuilding. All right. So speaking of the Cardinals, we're at the position where we start evaluating the future of potential stars because the Cardinals kind of need a lot of them, and one of those could be JJ Wetherholt. But T-Bone, you saw a piece from Kylie McDaniel, our friend over at ESPN, that put a comp out there, and I want you to toss this out to our listeners.
Yeah. So, I always enjoy when we get to see prospect writers give an idea of what they think someone could become if everything kind of goes right. And,
always works out.
I remember the Carlson one was Andre Ethier, which, man, that would have been a success compared to what happened. But I found it interesting. I've been trying to figure out when we have these conversations about Wetherholt being the next star for the Cardinals. When we talk about star players, what you always look at is there's typically a tool that they have that they do at elite level. For example, Corbin Carroll, it's his speed. Bobby Witt, it's his speed. Now, they've also are good hitters, don't get me wrong, but the speed is the tool. For Judge, Ohtani, guys like that, it is the power, right? It's hard to find a lot of stars. There's a couple out there that the hit tool is really their big calling card, which is basically hitting for good average, using all ends of the field, not necessarily a great power hitter, but got some pop as well. So I've been trying to figure out who that comp is. BK and I talked about it on the latest episode of the Redbird Report that we thought maybe Bo Bichette could be that comp.
I like that one.
I like that one as well. This one, I am curious to see what the reaction would be if this is what he became. So Kylie McDaniel came up with a comparison, and in his piece, he says, he reminds me of shades of Geraldo Perdomo, the shortstop for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So I present the question to the floor. If JJ Wetherholt became Geraldo Perdomo, who finished fourth in MVP voting this year, would that be a success for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Boy, you present this to the floor. Now Bradford, you are nodding your head in approval because I'm going to be fully blunt and honest. I heard Geraldo Perdomo, and I'm like, oh, God, really? Oh, I pulled up his stats.
Hey.
This season was good, but give me your nod of approval over here.
Well, initially, I got extremely excited, guys, and I think rightfully so because, being that fantasy baseball enthusiast, last year you were combing through the ranks there, somebody who could maybe take that jump, right, make that leap. And Perdomo last season, now granted, it hadn't exactly been a stellar amount of production leading to that point. Now, Tanner, I can't necessarily account for here a leap of 53 runs batted in. Even in the batting average department, he looked like a completely different player, even though he had been branded, categorized as somebody with immense upside and potential. But last season, what have we talked about when you have some of these blue chip prospects and guys in whom you do possess a lot of confidence? Credit to Arizona for hanging with him. It took until the age 26 season to really see him burst onto the scene and become a total revelation. Now, when the proverbial book is out next season, how does he adjust? It's basically punch, counterpunch, right? I do think last season, though, not only did you see a great bit of consistency, but he was also out there being somebody in your lineup for 161 games. Injuries, a bunch of different stuff. It had conspired against him in 2024. Now, yeah, I'm very intrigued to see whether he can replicate that production. But if you're telling me that JJ Wetherholt could ultimately fall into that category, could really approximate this level of production, yeah, I'm in right away.
I'm not. And if Perdomo goes on to the next 3 years and is a top 5 MVP candidate, then I can change my tune. But I'm just going to go off of his last 3 years and combine them together. That's not what you need JJ Wetherholt to be. Now, I'm not asking for JJ Wetherholt to be this perennial superstar where he's an MVP every year, but I think it's fair to want him to be a 2 or a 3 in terms of that three-headed monster for your offense. And
just to give people an idea, like you mentioned the last 3 years for him, which takes away his awful first year for Perdomo, who was not ready, had to fill in for Arizona because
he's 22 years old, too.
Yeah. the last 3 years for Perdomo, he does have a top 4 finish in MVP. He has been an all-star, but his overall numbers, 272, 367, 409 is the slug. That's a 776 OPS, 14% above league average.
I take the 409 slug. I take the 14% above league average. Perdomo's a really good shortstop as well, so all of those things are good. But I think JJ Wetherholt needs to be better. And I hate to put that pressure on him, but you drafted in this position. It's a top 10 pick. You don't get here very often, hence this MLB draft lottery that pushed you down in the draft. Maybe you're selecting there again next year. I think Bo Bichette is more in line of what the Cardinals need. And even Bo Bichette's not the number 1 in a 3-headed monster offensively. He's a 2. He's the Robin to the Batman of Vlad Guerrero Jr. Perdomo, now again, this could change. Perdomo could do what he did this past season for the next 3 years and be a 100 RBI, 20-plus home runs, and a guy that's 36% above league average. That's what I need. And unfortunately, Perdomo might be the anomaly one season and be a couple of points above league average. That's a 3 at best for a Cardinals team that's still searching for a 1 and 2.
But here's the problem. The cast by which a Perdomo is surrounded, does it influence, does it color the numbers, the way we interpret those in some way? Because also last year in making that leap, and keep in mind too, guys, the batting eye, the way in which he was able to demonstrate more patience. He drew 94 walks a season ago. That was markedly better, putting the ball in play, obviously hitting for power. But when you can lean on those around you, Corbin Carroll, Ketel Marte, even Gurriel is a legitimate source of power. You have nothing resembling those parts in St. Louis. So I think we also have to keep that in mind, that being relative insofar as, okay, if Wetherholt right away gives you that production for which you were so desperately hoping, can you view it in the same way? Because he doesn't have the pieces around him.
I would push back a little bit on not having the pieces. Now, I'm not saying they are the Diamondbacks, to be clear, but can Burleson do what Josh Naylor's done? I think so, right? I think it's actually a great comp. I think your hope is Burleson becomes Naylor. What you don't have, to your point, though, is you don't have the Carroll. You don't have the Ketel Marte. Yeah, and this is my biggest fear with this build with the Cardinals.
Right.
If he becomes this, would it be a little bit of disappointment? Yeah, I think it would be a little bit, especially if it's just the 114 OPS plus for a top 10 pick, you had mentioned. But if it is more of what Perdomo was last year, and you start to see a guy that can be about 30% above league average for his career, to me, that's a success. The problem is what we've been saying, right? I think the Cardinals, and it's my biggest fears, they're going to put too much pressure saying we need Wetherholt to be the one, and Herrera, Burleson, maybe there's their top 10 pick they'll have this year, assuming they'll have it, will be another piece that could fall into that potentially. I don't think he is the one, right? I think this guy that we're talking about with this hit tool is going to be a very good player in JJ Wetherholt. I think it's too much pressure to ask him to be the number 1 true superstar of a team. I think you're going to need to try and potentially find somebody. I hope I'm proven wrong. The Cardinals are right. But when I see his scouting report and I see that the hit tool is his number 1 asset, there's not many guys that are number 1s across teams as the true best hitter on that team that have that skill set.
You can get there, too. Like, I just looked at this. So Perdomo was signed as an international free agent in 2016. Corbin Carroll was drafted in the first round, 16th overall back in 2019. And they traded for Ketel Marte when he was a young prospect in, I forget what system he was a part of.
Either Seattle or Minnesota. I think Minnesota.
Regardless, they traded for him when he was young, and he built up to what he is now. It's kind of why I think it's important to try and trade Brendan Donovan to find out maybe you could get your Ketel Marte. You have to be great at drafting and selecting international players. JJ Wetherholt could be that 3. But you still need a 1 and 2. And that's the biggest concern that I have if I'm the Cardinals. So I would much more prefer Wetherholt to be a Bo Bichette, to where you drafted that guy that looks like he is going to be that piece that you build around, and you still have to add a couple more. Perdomo, to me, was we built around everybody, and we had this guy in the system that could step up, and maybe he does step into that position moving forward. Tanner Hendricks in Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, is this market playing out well for St. Louis? And also, what do fans want this team to accomplish with the trades at this year's deadline and also in the offseason? So we'll get to that in 15. But coming up next, NFL quick hitters, including another head coaching vacancy, is now filled. And boy, I'm curious to get your guys' take on what we think on it next here on 101 ESPN.
It's time for another moment in Blues history.
On this day back in 2022, the Blues would take down the Calgary Flames 5-1 on home ice. Calgary's one goal would come in the middle portion of the first period, sandwiched between Brandon Saad's 14th of the year and Braden Shen's 10th of the year. Saad would score again in the second period, then Kyrou at even strength early in the third, and Ryan O'Reilly on the power play with less than a minute to play in regulation.
This date in Blues history is powered by Classic Air Care.
Make your life more comfortable for all your HVAC, plumbing, and electrical needs. ClassicAirCare.com.
Alex Ferrario back with you to talk about my favorite app. It is the Underdog app because football's biggest game is right around the corner, and you get to be in on all of the action thanks to Underdog right now in the state of Missouri. And if you're not on there yet, then you are in luck because if the new customers sign up, they can score $75 in fantasy bonus entries when you make your first $5 fantasy entry. So you can do all of that over on the Underdog app. You pick your favorite player, favorite stats for the big game, and predict if they're going to go higher or lower. And if you get your entries right, you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. But I know you're like me. You're antsy. You don't want to wait until the big game. So I've got an NHL play for you. The first thing I do, I open up the Underdog app. 30% profit boost. They offer a lot of those, so make sure you check them out. Listen up because I'm going to give you 37-1 odds. I'm going higher on points for all of these players tonight. Matthew Nyes, Tage Thompson, Adrian Kempe, Patrick Kane, Morgan Geekie, Roman Yossi, and Brad Marchand. All of that with the profit boost, 30-1 odds. So make sure you download the Underdog app today and use promo code BKO to score $75 in fantasy bonus entries when you play your first $5 on fantasy. That's promo code BKO. Underdog, make plays, win money. Must be 18 plus and present in Missouri. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.ncpgambling.org.
TMA? Then nominate yourself to be the Morning After Listener of the Month, and you could be selected and score a Form Energy prize pack. Sign up now at 101ESPN.com or TMASTL.com. The TMA Listener of the Month Club is presented by Form Energy. We do the work. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN as we hit on some NFL quick hitters, and we have to start with another coaching vacancy filled. Guys, the Buffalo Bills have officially found their head coach after interviewing Phillip Rivers, interviewing Brian Daboll. They decide on their coordinator, Joe Brady. Oh, that's kind of my reaction as well. We just got this diehard Bills fan here. You don't want to blow up the entire thing with Allen in his absolute prime. I'm okay with the hire. Man, I'm not. And I, get it. You're hiring a guy who's in the system. Josh Allen loves. You get to work with him. This is not an upgrade over Sean McDermott. And maybe I'm proven wrong here, but the problem has never been the offense for Buffalo. The problem has been finding the actual weapons that can work with him and fixing your defense. And, man, I got rid of a defensive-minded coach in Sean McDermott for Joe Brady. I don't know, guys. To me, this one doesn't feel like a success. This feels like a step backwards.
I just think it's a step of the same, right? Mm-hmm. It's not like Joe Brady wasn't calling plays this past season either.
Not just keep McDermott?
Yeah, I don't fully understand. This definitely feels like a Josh Allen hire to me, right? We know the reports were there that Josh Allen was sitting in these meetings during these interviews. I'm totally cool with that. He shouldn't be the guy that hires the head coach. And I think this is what this signals. I think he basically told ownership, hey, I want Joe Brady as the next head coach. And they said, okay, fine. That's fine with us. I don't typically like when we see teams move on from a head coach and then they just hire someone internal, right? Because to me, if you're going to fire the head coach, to me, what you want to do is start over and get new ideas in the building. Mm-hmm. And it's not like there's new ideas from Joe Brady coming into the building. They were already in the building. So I don't know. I find it an underwhelming hire, but I say that to say this. There weren't a lot of great candidates out there either. I don't think Brian Daboll was much of an upgrade if they were going to go out that path. You know, I didn't see anybody else across the board. Maybe one of the Rams assistants like Shieldhouse or LaFleur, but even then, those are guys that I'm not 100% sure would have been great hires. I don't know. I just view this as if you're going to fire McDermott, to me, you need to go external.
Do you know he's 36 years old?
Yeah, I knew he was pretty young.
Dude's 1 year older than me.
He's a wonderkin, too. Hey, look.
Why aren't you a coach?
Believe me. You guys, know why. Have you heard me talk football?
There's one thing to say for preserving continuity, right? And look, in late 2023, when Dorsey was dismissed and Brady was installed in the role as OC, you knew that was an upgrade. Doing this at the head coaching spot, I am entirely unsure. And I agree with you, Alex, about the defense needing to drastically be retooled. But let's also be candid about this. I love watching Josh Allen play. He is phenomenal. He has transcended. Those were genuine, raw emotions after the fact at that podium following the loss in overtime to the Broncos. But let's not act as if Josh Allen for 2025 should be let off the hook either. 1 year after the MVP campaign, you look at the numbers, you look at the way in which he played in so many of those games. Was he stupendous at times? Absolutely. But this Bills offense, as a result, despite having a real bell cow then in James Cook, think about Josh Allen throwing nearly twice as many interceptions. Think about Josh Allen, not talking about the postseason here, in the regular season, having 5 additional fumbles. Think about Josh Allen taking 40 sacks as opposed to a shade over 10 in 2024. Josh Allen is not immune from the criticism here, even though I know, yes, he should be consulted. He should be in the room when it comes to making this decision, regardless of the relationship there with Joe Brady. He is turning 30. He is physically beaten down. That is his style. It is his MO. But let's not let him off the hook here either, because there was a drop back. There was a regression into the hero ball mode that marked the first few seasons of his career.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking him off the hook, but he made that team a playoff team for a terrible roster around him.
Sure.
And that's the front office. And the blame was put on the head coach. If you want my honest opinion, I think they just wanted a yes man. They wanted a guy that came in and did the job. And that's a young Joe Brady getting his first head coaching job. Joe Brady should do the funniest thing possible. He should hire Sean McDermott as his defensive coordinator.
I got a feeling Sean's a little upset still.
I would imagine, but my God, would that be amazing. All right, another head coaching job that was filled that we didn't even really talk about because, honestly, I think we're all on the same page of this. The Steelers hiring Mike McCarthy. It happened over the weekend. Congrats, you're the hometown guy and you're back. But can we stop with the Super Bowl winning head coach Mike McCarthy is back with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Can we also stop aren't the Steelers a good organization? Look at who they just hired. No, they're not a good organization.
You know what this is? Their owner does not want to be bad to get a better pick to make their roster better. He wants to sneak into the playoffs and just be a playoff team. And guess who can do that for you? Mike McCarthy.
Can you do it in that division? Do you feel confidently about...
Can you do it with that quarterback? You don't even know who your damn quarterback is.
I was going to say, there was a report over the weekend that they did this in part maybe because they're hoping Rodgers will come back.
Get the hell out of here.
You're
Rodgers
doing
isn't
that,
coming back.
You're doing that with the hometown guy, a 62-year-old. By the way, the one thing we do know about this hire, the fact you're not going to have a place in Pittsburgh. You're not going to have somebody there for 20 years. The guy's 62 right now.
He's just coached till he's 82.
Okay, this is a joke of a hire. But, I mean, again, I respect the Steelers for all the winning that they have done, and also because I don't want Kerry to get too upset with me. But this is not the hire to move your.
Kerry likes this hire. I don't know that for sure.
This is not the hire to move your organization forward. This is a hire to keep your organization in the same spot and potentially move backwards. Because McCarthy's not a great leader like Mike Tomlin was.
This feels to me, I don't think it's the typical one and done hire, but it felt to me of a, all right, we're probably going to go through a rough stretch here. This is the guy to at least lead us through this and at least lead the locker room, right? He's done it before. He's probably not a guy that, like, lifts our ceiling, but if we're being honest, we probably don't care about the ceiling. My guess is he was hired to be here for about 3 years while they kind of figure their stuff out, and then when they finally get their ish figured out, they move on and go hire the next hot coordinator.
I generally am asking this question. When was the last time he showed his ability to lead? And don't say the Cowboys, because that was Dak Prescott.
Well, to be fair, I'm not even sure it's Dak with the Cowboys. It's Jerry. It's Jerry's world, and you live in it.
But what I mean is that team was consistently winning because CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, their defense still had Micah Parsons at the time. Like, they were elite players that Mike McCarthy was the head coach of.
I think he was fine in his time with Green Bay.
But that's what I'm asking. That was a while ago, man.
Yeah, no, I just can't hold Dallas against him because I don't know, he's coach, but I don't know how much he really does when it's Jerry doing everything, right? With roster and all that.
In Big D as well, by and large, what did he do? He got the job done in the regular season. That dovetails perfectly into what Pittsburgh has been doing for the past decade plus.
I also would add this, and again, I'm not a fan of this hire. I think this should be the phrase of this cycle. Well, who else were we going to hire?
Well, and that's
right.
That's over at the Browns. The Browns, here are their, according to Adam Schefter, here are their final candidates for their head coaching job: Nate Scheelhaase, Jim Schwartz, and Todd Monken.
Yeah, exactly. Now, to be fair, this one I find, I can't even believe they're having a conversation or a debate about this. Do we go with Jim Schwartz, who failed spectacularly like a decade ago with Detroit, and the league has basically said this guy's not a head coach? Yeah. Do we go with Todd Monken, who's whatever, or do we at least try a hot viewed candidate and with an offensive mind that had a cup of coffee with Sean McVay? I don't think it's a question, right?
Why wouldn't the Browns be calling Sean McDermott? Has there been anything out of McDermott doesn't want to coach?
My guess would be, I've not seen anything. My guess is McDermott wouldn't take that job.
Because you already have the defense surely in place, and you need innovation offensively.
Yeah, I think if you're McDermott, with the jobs that are left, I love the idea of Scheelhaase to the Browns. I don't know if it would work because it's Cleveland, but to me, he makes more sense than the other two. But I think to your question on McDermott, if you're him, like, you got to let go. I guess Baltimore would have made sense at the time. Maybe Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh wanted to bring him in, you could have convinced yourself because of the ownership if you viewed it that way. But now the remaining jobs are Cardinals, Raiders, and who's the one I'm forgetting? There's one other that's available.
We talked about this. Why am I blanking on this?
I can't remember. There's a third one that's available in this mix. It's not a good one. Oh, Cardinals.
No, you said the Cardinals. Cardinals, Raiders, Browns. That's right.
Okay, of those three jobs, Browns, Raiders, Cardinals. If I'm Sean McDermott, I'm going, Sirianni's probably going to get himself fired in Philly next year. I'll take that job.
Sean McVay might step down when Stafford's gone. I'll wait.
Wait a cycle. One cycle.
I'll wait. Yeah. So that's what it is, and I think T-Bone put it perfectly. The NFL logo's slogan should be this year, who else were we going to hire? A lot of these teams probably firing a coach after this upcoming season. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll enter the junk drawer. But coming up next, is this market playing out best for the Blues? I'll explain why I wonder if that's a true statement next here on 101 ESPN.
Jamie Rivers here, and it's time for a New Jersey giveaway. We have your shot to score an autographed Blues jersey signed by number 55, Colton Parayko. Enter to win that Colt 55 autographed jersey right now at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. Courtesy of St. Luke's, ranked top 2% in the nation for cardiac surgery by health grades. Visit stlukes-stl.com. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Another round of Blues and Stars looms. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update presented by Soliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 7, downtown St. Louis and Dallas get underway for the second time in under a week. Last Friday, it was a 3-2 loss late in regulation for the Blues against those Stars. Pregame with our own Alex Ferrario beginning at 6 o'clock. NFL per ESPN's Adam Schefter, the Bills promoting offensive coordinator Joe Brady to the head coaching position. He's been with the organization since 2022. And on the hardwood tonight, also downtown, number 21 St. Louis University hosting George Washington at 7. Most recently, the Bills knocked off St. Bonaventure last Friday, 97-62. This Sports Center update has been brought to you by Soliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So earlier today, I saw a piece from Matt Larkin over on Daily Faceoff, and I really like Matt's work. NHL, I don't want to call it an insider, NHL reporter, but he's got some really good pieces that he puts out there. And he put out today the top teams with the best assets going into this year's trade deadline. And obviously, I'm assuming the Blues are on this list because, frankly, there's not a lot of sellers. On his list, 5th was the Winnipeg Jets, who I don't even know if they're going to be a seller. They might sell off a couple of pending UFAs, but they're in a position where they could still make the playoffs. Nashville, who is not going to be a seller because Barry Trotz can't sell right now. Vancouver 3rd, the Blues 2nd, then the New York Rangers 1st. And the more I looked into this, T-Bone, I started to wonder, have the Blues set themselves up for success at this year's trade deadline? And what I mean by that is, you know, I look at what the Blues potentially have available. Braden Shen, Justin Falk. To me, that is the best right-handed defenseman, maybe the best defenseman that's available via trade, if you look at some of these teams. The Rangers don't have a defenseman unless they're going to move Alex Fox, and I don't expect them to do that. Canucks don't have a defenseman unless they're going to move Philip Hronek, who I don't expect them to move. And then on this list, if you're going down Nashville's perspective, they don't have any defensemen they're going to trade, nor does the Winnipeg Jets, except Luke Shen or Logan Stanley, third pair guys. Justin Falk is the best trade asset out there as defenseman. And then you go Braden Shen. Shen may not be a top-line center, but he's definitely a middle six that can help a team win. But then you go to the controllable assets. And this is the part that's like, man, if the Blues decide to get aggressive at the trade deadline, and my expectation is it's off-season, but the Rangers, sure, they have the best players available in terms of Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck. Trocheck has a no-move clause. Panarin has a no-move clause. And Panarin's an unrestricted free agent who's not willing to sign an extension, at least as of right now. The Vancouver Canucks have Elias Pettersson. And Pettersson's got a full no-move clause that he has to decide where he wants to go. That's it. The Blues have Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, who also decide where they're going to go. But they're 26 and 27 years old with 5+ years of control at $8 million. So I don't know what's going to happen at this deadline, but if you were to sit there and tell me teams are trying to make trades, I think the Blues might be the best option to call because they've got guys that can play top 4, top 6 roles, and they're controllable assets that the Blues just want young players in return.
Yeah, I think they've got some of that. We'll see how much they're really willing to do with Kyrou and Thomas. And if I'm being honest, it's the thing I keep saying as we get closer and closer to when they have to make these decisions. Those feel like off-season moves to me, right? Like I think those conversations start more now and then really pick back up once we get to the deadline or to the off-season because it's just so hard to move these contracts. But I do think they are in a good position with guys like Shen, like Falk, to your point, because of what you were saying of, hey, these guys can come in. Shen probably more of a third-line center at this point in his career, but teams seem to value leadership across the NHL. I can have my quarrels with that, but they seem to value it across the NHL. Justin Falk, you're probably right, is the best defenseman on the market right now. And if that's the case for the Blues, the one thing that's nice for them, there's only 4 sellers, right?
Yeah.
And most of these teams have already kind of started. Like Vancouver's already started their sell-off, and now it's just a matter of, okay, what else are they going to do? To your point on the Rangers, they're kind of limited because their best assets have a bunch of no trade or no move clauses in them. For the Blues, like, sure, Shen does have a 15-team no trade list. It's only 15, though. right? Same can be said for Justin Falk. He no longer has full protection. So you can work around some of these restrictions that they haven't been able to do in the past because of the no trades. I think that's why they are in a good position, because they can move some of these guys. And, like, I know his name's not out there. I wonder if they list on a Pius Suter.
Yeah, you have to.
Someone that has got another year of control in his contract, has literally no trade protection at all in his deal. So you can move him to any team if anybody has some interest in him. So, yeah, I think this market is starting to play out well for the Blues. The only thing that I do have a concern with, and I don't know if you've had this thought or not, it's the intrusive thought playing in my head. You know, Craig Button was on with Frank Saravalli earlier today, and he was talking about, hey, Toronto should be a team that considers selling off some pieces.
And significant pieces like Nylander, Matthews, Morgan Riley.
The one thing that I worry about if you're the Blues is if some team that wasn't expected to become a seller suddenly moves into that category before we get to the trade deadline, because those are significant pieces that suddenly teams may look at the Blues and say, yeah, I like Schenn, I like Falk. Wait a minute. Okay, now Toronto wants to have conversations. Okay, let's shift to that. And then the next thing you know, if you're the Blues, you're sitting there in second place looking around going, okay, now who's still going to have conversations with us about some of these moves? But I still think even if that does occur, they've got plenty of assets in Schenn and Falk that teams are going to want.
Well, and the thing with Nylander and Matthews is nobody's making that deal work in season.
No.
That's 11.5
it's like
13.2.
Thomas. I mean, now it's more money, but it's the same scenario.
For sure.
Kind of.
And so that would be the concern for me in the offseason if you try and move a Kyrou or a Thomas. Like, the better pieces might be going to Toronto if they decide to move. I just don't foresee Toronto getting to the point where they say, we've got to trade these guys. You already moved on from Marner, and it's looking like a bad decision. If you move on from Matthews or Nylander, you're going into a full-blown rebuild. But in season, I don't see that happening, and that's why I think Falk and Schenn would be the best. So that leads me to this question. And 314-399-9646 is our Air Comfort Service text line, also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. What are you looking for in those trades? As a fan, what would make you, I don't want to say excited because season's not going to be very exciting. What would make you pleased with Doug Armstrong's job in return? Because for me, anything but picks. I want players. Now, it's kind of like divided. I'm fine with picks for a Schenn. Falk, I'd rather a player over picks because I think Falk is a pretty good asset and you could get something of significant in return. Think of what Schenn almost got you last year in that Frazier Minton, who's playing top 6 for Boston right now. I'd like a player for Falk. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou, I don't want picks. I want players. I want names. So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I can understand the picks because if you can get ammunition, I think that's a good thing to have. I don't expect the Blues to keep those going into the draft. But, man, I want names more than I want numbers at this trade deadline, and specifically the offseason if they go down that path.
Yeah, see, I'm more open-minded to picks than you are. I'm fine with taking players as well because it's less development, right? Like, that is one of the bigger arguments. I mean, you saw with Broberg when they went out and signed him, right? Edmonton did all the hard work, and you got the reward of what he was able to do for you. I'm okay with first-round picks, right? Like, if they trade Falk, they trade Schenn, and they get 2 firsts in that, and they end up in the situation where they were a couple years ago when we went to Nashville, where they had 3 first-round picks. I'm fine with it, right? Even if you move like a Sundqvist and get like a third-round pick, totally fine with that because I just want to accumulate as many assets as possible at this trade deadline. I don't care if it's a player that's close. Don't care if it's a player that's far away. Don't care if it's not even a player. It's a pick that I'm ended up getting because I just want ammunition to play with when you get to the offseason, right? If I have multiple first-round picks, maybe someone comes available I'm not expecting right now, and I can go out and trade for that guy because I have multiple first-round picks. Maybe they want prospects. Well, maybe we acquired that. We can move those guys out. Maybe we want to trade up in the NHL draft, right? Maybe we want to go from 3 to 2, and we think we can do it because we have 3 first-round picks. Like, I'm just open-minded to accumulating assets, right? I want as many outs as possible and as much to kind of wheel and deal as possible as well when we get to the offseason. So if they come around and they say, you know what, we only wanted picks and they didn't get any players that were close prospects, I'm totally cool with that. As long as you are getting what I think is a good return for those guys, I don't care if it's a pick or a player.
Yeah, from the 314, young cost-controlled, promising players is what I want. He said Lane Hudson from Washington, Alex Nikishin from Carolina, Shane Wright from Seattle. That's where I'd want to go. It's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know if you're not getting those for Falk and Schenn. I could be blunt about that. You're not getting them for Schenn. That's Thomas or Kyrou, and that's in the offseason if it even happens. But for the deadline, I'm not going to be upset with first-round picks. I think you're in a position, though, that you need guys who are at least starting to make their trek towards the NHL rather than starting from ground zero and taking a guy who is still playing in juniors or playing in the college level. He's Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll get back into hockey in the 1:30 segment because last week we were going to talk about it. We didn't get to it of, how much blame should be placed on Jim Montgomery because of the struggles this season for the Blues. So we'll do that at 1:30. Better to forget it coming up in about 30 minutes or so. But coming up next, the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Sunday, Knicks and Lakers. Pregame at 5:30. Tip-off at 6. Your home for the NBA is 101 ESPN. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The Junk Drawer with BK and Ferrario.
to dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got today?
We didn't get a chance to talk about this last week, but I thought now's as good a time as any.
Yeah, mostly because none of us have anything.
Yeah, I mean, last week they came out with the Oscars 2026 Best Pictures.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious how many of these you guys have seen.
Let's play the game of, Alex, have you seen it? I say the under's one.
I'm going
1.5 set it and the under.
I'm going half is what I'm going with for you.
Honestly,
I would say
probably.
Bradford might have seen like 2 or 3 of these would be my guess. But, okay, so there are 10 total movies that are up for Best Picture.
Uncultured swine. Let's do this.
I'm not even sure how you pronounce this first one,
Well,
but
I'm out on
Begonia,
it.
I believe is how it is pronounced.
Correct,
Stars
yes.
Emma Stone. Did you see it?
It's a Jesse Plemons vehicle, too, but no, I have not seen it.
I've heard good things about it.
Correcting your pronunciation.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it. And Emma Stone's in it. It's getting a bunch of
I'm not a big Emma
buzz.
Stone.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I like
I'm
Emma
not
Stone.
a big Emma Stone.
I don't
think
love
she's
the
good.
last few years, but her overall catalog, I'm a fan.
Her early catalog was good when she
Yeah.
was like that teen comedy, but now, I don't know. I'm just not into it.
So that's one. The F1 movie, which is on Apple, is up for Best Picture.
Is that Brad Pitt?
Brad Pitt is the
I
star
haven't
of that
seen
one.
it, but I know he's in it.
I haven't seen it. I want to see it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
on my list.
Yeah, no, out.
Frankenstein, which is on Netflix. I believe this is the one that's on Netflix.
Frankenstein. Who's in that?
It stars
Google it.
That's Oscar Isaac.
Isaac. Yeah, I
And
can remember
plus,
his name.
Jacob Elordi from that show everyone
that the one
adores,
with-
Euphoria. BK knows him. BK, yeah.
Oh, BK probably absolutely knows him. I'd be interested in Frankenstein. I didn't know they remade Frankenstein.
Yeah, I think there's 2 that are out there. There's the one on Netflix, and I think there was a second one that
I
came
never
out.
saw the movie.
No?
I never saw the movie Nosferatu that they remade, and I actually really wanted
Never
to
even
see
heard of
that.
that name.
It's from a black and white film, which I watched when I was at Lindenwood, and it was awesome.
Another one that is out. I think my grandma just went and saw this, Hamnet, which is William Shakespeare one.
Yeah.
No, Hamnet, I think.
okay, well.
Hamannet.
That is the correct title.
All you
Yes.
needed to say was William Shakespeare.
Yeah, I have no interest in that one.
I slept through that portion of English.
Marty Supreme. I saw that one with.
Nope.
Why am I drawing a blank? Timothy Chalamet.
Oh, you did?
The ping pong movie where he's a ping pong player. I thought it was very good.
He
It was
went
very
total
good.
method. Okay,
Yeah.
total method.
I thought it was very good.
These
I
all
recommend
sound
seeing that
awful.
one.
These all sound
That
awful
one was
right
good.
now.
One battle after another with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay, saw this one.
Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, I'm surprised you saw that one.
No, I saw
didn't-
this one. Well,
I didn't
everybody
like
made it out to be. I didn't either. Everyone made it out to be the best film that's been
Yeah,
ever put.
I think it's
thought it was
overhyped.
fine.
I can't tell if it was because of the hype that led up to it, is
It was
why I was
because of the hype.
disappointed. But yeah, I didn't think it was
They
that great.
made it seem like it was The Departed, and The Departed was such a better movie than this one.
100%. Secret Agent is another one. I've never even heard of this one, but it's up for Best Picture for for the Oscars. We've got Sentimental Value. Haven't heard of that one either. Sinners. I saw Sinners.
There
That
you
one
go.
was
Sinners I
very
saw.
good.
Wow, okay. I saw
you did
two
see
of
two.
them.
Record-
This was Michael B. Jordan.
Record-breaking 16 nominations.
Yeah, that was
crazy.
incredible.
That was an awesome movie.
And then I know my dad has seen it. To me, it looks very boring, but it's called Train Dreams, and it's about a guy that works like the rails.
Oh, God.
I can't remember who it is, the main actor that's in it.
I really like
But
the
a
main
lot
actor.
of people really love it.
sounds
Joel
brutal.
Edgerton. Did you guys ever see Warrior? Joel Edgerton, Tom
say I
Hardy a
have.
few years ago, MMA, brothers grappling, dueling with themselves. Good stuff.
Yeah, this has got a pretty solid cast in it, but yeah, I hadn't seen that one either. But I've seen 3 on this list. I want to make it 4 by seeing the F1
Yeah,
movie.
I saw 2.
Outside that, I don't need to see the rest.
Wow, look at this
Look
guy.
at it, man.
Bringing
That's
up the
surprising.
rear.
Yeah.
Wow,
Man.
I'm surprised. I
would've
thought for
never
sure
guessed.
you would have seen a couple more of these.
Not to be the elitist here, but 2025, let's just say, given the films you just outlined.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not taking anything away from the overall body. I guess I am. This is not going to go down to some banner year in motion picture history. It just isn't. It just isn't.
You know what should be on that list, and I'm surprised it's not because I saw this? The Long Walk. I don't know if anybody has seen this film. This is a movie based off of Stephen King book.
Yeah.
To where it's like a military world or whatever, and like they have this thing where young men go into it and they have to keep walking, and if you stop walking, they shoot you. And the person that's standing last gets like an amount of money and like changes the world, and they get one wish. It was really freaking good. It was compelling, and I'm surprised that doesn't make the Best Picture award. Maybe people don't like films that I like.
Unfortunately, that faded from the theaters really quickly
It did.
because I too wanted to see it. Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman's son actually led that cast.
And then Luke Skywalker is in it. Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Plays
Like,
a Jedi.
Yeah, hey. Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty good. I
Are
got
you
two
the
on
guy
the
that
list.
every time you see Mark Hamill, like, it's a Jedi, it's Luke Skywalker?
No, because I wasn't a Star Wars fan, but it's the only thing I can... It's that and then the cartoon Batman. He was
Joker.
the voice of the Joker.
Yeah.
The only two things I know of Mark Hamill.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much his catalog. I know he did a couple of other things,
All you
but
need is Star Wars, and that's
Yeah.
the only catalog you really need.
Pretty good in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, too.
It was actually a really good one. I know that one, too. That was a good one. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, and I'm the movie guy, Alex Ferrario, here on 101 ESPN. We'll come back. Can other teams look at what the Seahawks did this season and say, we can build that way? That, and where does Drake May rank among the quarterbacks right now in the NFL? We'll touch on those next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is your home for Blues hockey. Every month during the season, you can score a pair of tickets to a Blues game at Enterprise Center. A new winner is picked every month throughout the season. Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app presented by Ted Cruz Frozen Custard. WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So one half of this Super Bowl matchup, in my opinion, the better half of this Super Bowl matchup, are the Seattle Seahawks. And every sport is a copycat league. When one team wins, the other teams that didn't say, well, we could build like that. But I think the Seahawks are a fascinating experiment to where you're not overpaying for a quarterback. You're going to the middle of the market, and you're building around it with pieces that are elite that win you football games, and that is defensively and playmakers on the offensive side. And T-Bone, you brought this up in the office, and I think we talked about this either yesterday. Yeah, yesterday we did, of talking about, I wonder if teams start to go to the middle of the market and start chasing quarterbacks and say, well, we're not going to overpay for guys, and we're not going to try and draft unless we're sitting at the top of the draft. We're going to go after some of these middle pieces and go out there and win. The real question is, can that be successful? Because a lot of the times when you copycat other teams, it fails miserably and you're chasing your tail.
Yeah, and I really don't know if this one is a build that is sustainable. I think we'll see a lot of teams try this, where they go to that middle tier of the market, see if they can get the rebound guy. Like two guys that I would highlight to keep an eye on this offseason. We'll see if they get cut or not, but there's at least been some talk that they're probably played their final snaps with their teams. It's Tua Tagovailoa and Kyler Murray. If Tua gets cut, if Kyler gets cut, I wonder if somebody looks at them and says, we'll go out there, we'll do kind of the mid-tier market, we'll be the revival spot for you, maybe a one-year deal. Probably don't even have to pay even what Darnold got this year, because they'll be looking just for a spot on a roster. You could probably get them closer to the minimum, especially because they'll be getting paid from their other team. And teams say, maybe we can find lightning in a bottle, right? Maybe it was just maybe it was the place, right? Maybe it was Miami was the problem for Tua. Maybe it was the Tyreek Hill, the locker room, all that. Maybe in Arizona that's a dysfunctional organization. Let's bring these guys in. We'll get them on the cheap at the quarterback position, and then we'll build around it. I just think we're going to see a lot of teams try and copy this, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think Sam Darnold, to his credit, has been able to revitalize his career. I'm not sure a lot of guys that end up getting a second opportunity really do. And I think that we're going to see teams try this, and I think we're going to see them fail. And the other thing, too, when you build this way, and you laid it out perfectly, Alex, when you were describing the Seahawks, Sam Darnold's not a guy that will lift the roster around him, right? I think Goff is one of these guys, even though Goff's got the contract. Yeah. Goff's not the guy that lifts the roster around him. The roster lifts him, and that's happening in Seattle. So a lot of the problems I think you would see when teams will try, and if they want to try and emulate this build, is they'll say, well, we'll get the cheaper quarterback. We're still not going rookie level deal because we don't have the pick to go get it. We don't like someone in the class, but we'll bring in Kyler. We'll give Kyler the second chance. Okay, but you got to build the roster around him, right? You got to have that complete roster, the elite level defense, really good weapons like the Seahawks have on offense, where you've got Kenneth Walker at running back. You've got Cooper Kupp in the role that he should be at this point in his career as a really good number 2, number 3 with JSN, and then Shaheed that can be the deep ball threat for him. Like, they've built a really good roster around Sam Darnold. But a lot of teams, if you try this, what'll happen is you'll miss somewhere. And if that's the case, you're not going to be what Seattle is.
And what makes this situation obviously unique, guys, and you touched upon some of it, Tanner, the fact that nobody else, no other organization has the guy, the architect in place as your GM, and that would be John Schneider. I know the narrative has been put out there to some extent, but literally he's the first guy in the modern era to take the same organization to 2 separate Super Bowls despite not having the previous head coach or any of the players from the previous regime. And that can boil down to a lot of different things. You're talking about identifying the requisite talent. You're talking about developing that talent, and then also having everything basically play out and pan out for you in the most advantageous way possible. Look, following 2024, there were a lot of people, especially when you really scrutinized that division moving forward. It's not to say that you weren't confident in the newer head coach in Mike McDonald, that you weren't confident in some of these guys to really raise their respective ceilings moving forward, but a lot of things had to materialize that you weren't anticipating as quickly as they did. To note, DK Metcalf goes, of course, to the Steel City. Did we really think that all of a sudden Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is just flat out special, he would morph into a top 3, maybe even the top guy in the NFL now? He is an undisputed number 1. That Sam Darnold, for the first half of the season, would have a ridiculously good output as far as the stats go. The running back spot now, it's almost interesting in a way that you had Kenneth Walker sharing so many of those early season carries with a Charbonnet, because now you put him out there, he has to take on the lion's share, and he looks as fresh, as explosive as anybody in the game. You couple that with the ferocity on defense, being able to win in that third phase of the game of special teams too, making the in-season trade, the acquisition of Shaheed. Everything has worked out perfectly, but I think a lot of that is, in part, it's largely a credit to John Schneider, because he has been that pillar. He has been that benchmark, per se, in the Pacific Northwest for so long, and he has now done this with a couple of different iterations of this organization. Good luck finding somebody else like that.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned in the office the Buccaneers are an example that tried to do it, obviously with Baker Mayfield, and I think if they could have stayed healthy, we might be having a different conversation. But they also failed in the fact of you got to be elite at defense, too. Yeah. Like, you can have the elite playmakers, and I think they have multiple of those guys in terms of Evans and Ibuka, but they couldn't stay healthy. And then they also couldn't stop the football. And that's where Seattle's great. They had the elite playmakers in terms of Jackson Smith and Jigba and Kenneth Walker, and then they had an incredible defense. The team you mentioned, if they decide to pull the trigger on it with Kyler Murray, I'd pick the Cardinals as a team that could try and do it. The problem is I don't know who that middle-tier quarterback is that they bring in, but they've got the elite playmaker, I think, in Marvin Harrison Jr. They've got a really good defense, and they're selecting top 3 this year in the draft. Depending on where they go, they could be a team, but it all comes down to making sure you get the right quarterback, and I don't know who that is in this market now. Sam Darnold was it. I don't think Tua makes that much of a difference for Arizona because essentially I think you got Tua. I think Miami's in a spot where their roster is just bad as well.
I think that's where Arizona is. I like Marvin Harrison. That defense stinks.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Like, I like Budda Baker. I think they have some elite secondary pieces, but you're right. They don't have a pass rush, and can you fix that with one piece in the draft? I think it takes multiple years. The real answer to this is no, you can't do this. Like, Seattle is a rare team that just struck at the right time, had the pieces, had a lot of good drafts, to Bradford's point, and then they went out there and they got the missing piece. I don't see a lot of teams in the NFL right now that are sitting one quarterback away from putting themselves in that position, and then the follow-up to that is who's the quarterback?
Yeah.
Because I don't think there's a whole lot of those options out there. One quarterback that is elite, in my opinion, is Drake May right now. I think he's the MVP. If he's not the winner, he's going to be the runner-up to Matt Stafford. Where would you put him amongst top quarterbacks in the NFL? AFC, NFC, you can split the conferences as you want, but where would you put him in terms of the NFL?
I think he's a top 10 quarterback right now in the NFL. I think I would put him like 7 to 10 range is where I think he falls for me when you're looking at Drake May, and I don't think he moves up much even if he wins a Super Bowl. And I know that probably sounds weird to say, but I still wouldn't take him over a Mahomes. I still wouldn't take him over Allen. Still wouldn't take him over Burrow, Lamar. Then when I look at the NFC, like I don't know if that I would take him over. I know I wouldn't take him over Stafford.
Yeah.
I don't think I would take him over Caleb Williams, but I think that's probably about where that cutoff line is. So I think for me, he's 7th, and I don't think he moves up even if he wins the Super Bowl here.
I would say that, okay, you had this sea change basically as far as the perception of Drake May just from this season alone. However, there were so many people, even late last year in 2024, who really did say, take Daniels out of the equation, Caleb Williams. This is a guy, as far as being able to develop him, as far as being that next level threat and somebody who could compete for honors on a year in, year out basis. The belief was there. Now, 30 games into his career, I'm not ready to elevate him above tier 1. Okay, obviously, Mahomes, Allen, even Burrow, yes, belong in that class by themselves. But I do believe now, you can, moving forward in the here and now and flashing ahead to 27 as well, guys. I think that you can truly form an argument if you were to put Drake May at least on par, on course with, or above a Lamar Jackson, and here's why. Because the dual nature of what May can do. We understand his statistics, they haven't been profound this postseason. They haven't had to be. But what he offers you in terms of arm action, arm talent, and the mobility to make those off-platform throws, Lamar Jackson may not quite be the same guy he was even a season or two ago. Are we seeing the wear and tear has that finally caught up to him as he goes over the age of 30? I'm willing to put May in that, under that umbrella as well. Stafford as well still belongs probably a tick ahead, but I'm not sure that I would go outside of the top 5 with Drake May, win or lose in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think I'm borderline top 5, probably 6th or 7th. I think it's pretty clear. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. As much as I don't want to put Lamar Jackson up there, I think I still have to put Lamar Jackson until Drake May gets a little bit more reps under his belt. But after that is where I get into Drake May territory. Now, this is the understanding. Matt Stafford's above him, but I think Matt Stafford's probably on his way out if he retires. So I'm looking at it that way.
He's above him. He's not going to be there for maybe another year or two.
I think Drake May is the best quarterback if you were to put him in the NFC, and he'd be right there tied with Caleb Williams. And the only reason I would give Drake May the advantage is because I think he has a tool that Caleb Williams doesn't have, and it's that running ability.
Which of the two do you project long-term to be more of an asset, to be like transformative long-term?
Drake May. And I think it's because of his running game. I think that running game, as we see with Josh Allen, as long as you're not detrimental with it, like Lamar Jackson is, it just opens up the ability to create more. And let's also remember the Patriots roster around him is bad. Yeah. And he's still doing this. So I think it's May.
I would say Caleb. I think Caleb, we'll see if he's able to take that next step, because he still has some tendencies where he puts the team in bad situations, where he tries to do a little too much. But I think Caleb, and I think we sleep on Caleb's legs. He rushed for nearly 400 yards this past year, too. Like, I think he can use his legs just as well, and I think he's got better arm talent than him. But I would give the edge to Caleb.
And that's to say nothing of the weapons, because you talked about it, Alex, the fact that right now it's not as if Drake May is operating with this influx of threats at receiver. With all due respect to Diggs, and he has displayed this year that he's had more left in the tank than I had envisioned. You know that Mike Vrabel, that the staff, those guys are going to beef up the supporting cast there. And that coupled with, you know what you're going to get defensively speaking. And that group is still criminally underrated on that side of the football, guys, in my opinion. And the running game, too, Stevenson, Henderson, two-headed monster. You mark my words, next year you're going to see the latter Henderson get more and more of those carries. This offense will get that much more explosive.
That's Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we're going to get back into the Blues. How much blame are you placing on the struggles this season to Jim Montgomery? But coming up next, bet it or forget it. You send us a scenario. We'll tell you if we are going to bet it or forget it next on 101 ESPN.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Vegas sets him up, and we're here to make the call. It's BK and Ferrario's Bet It or Forget It on 101 ESPN.
Ooh, 314-399-9646. That is our Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. You can join us over there. Our studio cams brought to you by the Air Alliance team. It's 121. Your time check brought to you by Clarkson Jewelers, an officially licensed Rolex jeweler. I will kick things off, fellas. I think we've done this before, and it has not gone well for me, but bet it or forget it. Next season, the Blues will have a top 3 player in the Rookie of the Year conversation.
Top 3. Let's see. The only guy that would probably be that is either Carbonneau if he made it or Juracek.
Or their top pick.
Oh, well, that's true, too.
Boom. Yeah. I had 3 outs on this one.
For some reason, I was even forgot about that.
For context, the Rookie of the Year right now, Demidov from the Montreal Canadiens, he's got 43 points. Matthew Schaefer's got 34 points, but Schaefer's got 13 goals. And Beckett Seneke, who's got 18 goals.
Demidov taken?
I think he was top 10, 6th or 7th.
I think that's...
Did you ask when or where?
When.
That was the 24 draft.
And what was the pick overall?
That was the Celebrini draft, and he was 5th overall.
Yeah. Oh, man. I will forget it. I will play the odds that it doesn't happen.
Are you kidding me? I got great odds.
I love the outfits you've got there, because if they do end up with a top 2 pick, especially, they get either Stenberg or McKinnon, I could see where that ends up happening. But I said this yesterday. For some reason, nice things don't seem to be happening to St. Louis. They'll end up with like the 3rd pick, and that guy won't be here.
So Macklin Celebrini got it the year he was drafted. I think Connor Bedard got it the year he was drafted.
He did, 23-24.
And then the 21 draft, that was Matty Beniers. So he was drafted 2nd overall.
I'm going to bet it, because you know what, guys? We need more than a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
More than a shred of optimism these days as we get ready to flip that calendar to February. Why not? Alex, you gave me the plethora of options, right? You could have at least 3 different options, and I didn't know this until I really did a little more digging. Actually, if you're bullish on the prospects of a Juracek, hey, 3 different defensemen since 1920 have actually captured this award as well.
And
more than I thought.
Was Barrett Jackman.
Oh, how about that?
How about that one for you?
It's not just offense first. No.
I'm going to bet this one, and I think
appreciate it.
If I were to rank them in terms of possibility, I'd say your draft pick would be 1, Juracek would be 2, and then Carbonneau would be 3. T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, bet it or forget it. The Missouri Tigers will make the NCAA tournament. I just looked over this at DraftKings. They are basically split on their futures bet of if they will or won't. Yes, minus 120. No, minus 110. So it is about 50-50 on where they stand with the Missouri Tigers.
Go ahead, Bradford.
I asked this question because we got Bradford in the building.
Tanner, nice wavelength, because I was leaning Mizzou, actually, for this particular segment.
Me.
I am going to bet it, okay? Yes, I'm back in the saddle today, so you would expect as much for the Tiger guy. But hey,
well, that's tomorrow.
Hear me out here. Hear me out. Tonight, another opportunity, a big one on the road. Against Alabama, for instance, okay? You're coming off of that high. You're trying to parlay that momentum, yes, from the overtime buzzer beater, Mark Mitchell, doing his thing in Norman. And Alabama, for example, has been suspect thus far in conference play. The cream of the crop, the top tier of the SEC. My main point is, this season as opposed to last year, it is not quite as daunting early in the schedule. You did yourself a major favor by being able to nab those early victories against Florida, against Kentucky, on the road for that matter, the latter one. And now it boils down to, look, I'm not expecting this team to actually steal one in Tuscaloosa. I think you can hang with Nate Oates, with his team. But if you're able to protect that home floor, if you're really able to do so, I think the second half of the conference season actually is more advantageous for you. And if you have more guys stepping up to be able to provide that help for Mark Mitchell, so he's not the sole source of offense. Trent Pierce has frankly been a revelation ever since he returned to the lineup. I like what this team is doing as well by giving more and more run to T.O. Barrett in the backcourt. Now, whether that means Robinson isn't the guy moving forward going into March, I don't know. But I think this team is better equipped, potentially, if it qualifies, to actually do a little bit of damage in the conference tournament. I really do.
And I'm putting 100 on no right now on my DraftKings app.
Cut me off.
They're not a tournament team.
Really?
They're not a tournament team. I watch them and I go, man, they should have lost to Oklahoma. They've lost at LSU. Don't give me the crap it was on the road that BK would tell me. That's a team you need to beat in conference play.
I agree. I agree.
Like, they can play. As we saw this week, they can lose to anybody in this conference. You know how many opportunities they're going to have for a top 25 win the rest of the way? Any guesses on that?
1.
A little more than that.
It's not great.
3.
Only 4. They've only got 4 more opportunities to pick up top 25 win. At Alabama, loss. Vandy, loss. And then Arkansas twice. I just, where's these big wins coming from for them? That's my question. And I see them losing games they're not supposed to as we continue in conference play. I see them out. I see Missouri not making the NCAA tournament this year.
Is it also a reflection on the slightly lesser nature of the conference as a whole this year? That's fair.
Because the conference is down, and that's part of the reason Gates had said earlier, right? Or there was a broadcast I mentioned this a couple games ago of, hey, why do we not schedule a big non-con schedule? Well, you get a chance for big wins in conference play. The SEC's not as good this year. And if it's not as good, that means the middle's not as good, right? So some of these wins that they're picking up against middling teams aren't as effective as they need to be to add to what the resume is. I think they miss. Watching them, the eye test tells me not a tournament team. I'm sorry, I had to bring it up.
Damn, man. I bet
$100 they missed the tournament. I did it while Bradford was talking.
Tag in, Alex. Tag in.
No, believe me, I have nothing more to add to this one. Bradford, was this one yours, or did you have another one?
I actually did have the specter of whether Mizzou would actually be able to cover that 10.5 number tonight. But let's fling it elsewhere, actually, on the hardwood. We're staying with that. SLU, of course, has a big-time game in its own right tonight, hosting George Washington at Chaffetz at 7 o'clock. Bet it or forget it. The Billikens go through the remainder of Atlantic 10 conference play, not talking about the conference tournament, without a loss, staying undefeated until the tourney.
Oh, I'm going to say forget it.
Yeah.
I still think they're probably a tournament team this year, but the reason I say forget it, it's just going to be hard to run the distance in the A-10. There's going to be nights where, some of these schools that you go and play, you're at a high school gym, essentially, that it's going to be hard to create your own energy. I think they slip up once or twice in conference
play. Think if I'm a SLU fan, I want them to slip up. If they go undefeated the rest of the route, man, I'm not going to feel great about that team in the tournament, because when you feel invincible, that's typically when things go poorly for you once you get into the bracket. So I'm going to say forget it. I think they slip up at some point, and I think that slip up will be good for SLU.
And I think, honestly, irrespective of tonight, how it goes down against George Washington, it's another tough conference game. I always worry about Dayton. Okay, I know on the surface this year, not exactly playing the exact same brand of basketball, getting the exact same kind of results. That's Friday night. It's a pretty quick turnaround, albeit at home, I understand that. It could boil down to, guys, honestly, that regular season finale. You're talking about, yes, March the 7th against the other team in your conference with just one loss at present. It's George Mason. It's on the road. Watch out for that one.
All right, let's get to some of your texts. 314-399-9646. Bradford ate up a lot of the time trying to convince us Mizzou's a tournament team.
I was out, Bradford. It was a great long spiel about it.
It was an illustrious illustration of Mizzou, Bradford. From the 801, bet it or forget it, the Blues draft pick this year will turn out to be a dud. I'm going to forget this one. I know there's a lot of duds typically in the draft. I don't think the Blues have had a dud in terms of their draft picks for some time now. Like, their scouting department has done pretty well. Now give them the best weapon to use, and that's a top 3 pick. I'm going to say forget this one.
Yeah, I would forget it. I like that you brought that up, because you look at some of their first-round picks lately, they've done a pretty good job of hitting them. Like, Dvorsky looks like he's going to be a success. Yeah. Stenberg looks like he's going to be a success. Kyra was a success for later in the draft as well, that they were able to get him. Thomas was a middling first-round pick. Yeah, I would forget this. And now they get a top 3 position.
When would you say the last dud of a draft pick was for the Blues?
It's
in the first round.
It's too early to judge him yet because we haven't seen him, but I wonder if Lindstein's starting to fall into this a little bit.
He could be, and that's a really good one, but I mean, that's the back end of the first round. So, but I mean, it's still a valid point. For me, the last one that I could go to is 2018 Dominic Bach.
Was he before?
He was before Thomas.
Sorry, not before Thomas. Was he before, who was the Russian that they always seem to love?
That was Klim Kostin.
Kostin.
Yes, he was after Klim Kostin. Kostin was a different draft scouting director. Where was he? He was
taken by the other Armstrong, right?
Yes, he was Bill Armstrong. Yeah, he was taken in the 2017. He was the same draft as Robert Thomas.
Gotcha.
So he was the year prior. So it was Robert Thomas, Clem Costin, Dominic Bach. Prior to that, Tage Thompson turned out well. Robbie Fabry, I guess you could label that a bust if you want. I think he was good enough for you. And then Jordan Schmaltz. But that's going back to 2012.
I'm not going to call Bach a dud because we got Falk for him. Now we're getting first-round pick for Falk.
Bet it or forget it. The Blues trade or move on from 8 players from their roster before next season.
Oh, man.
Not just trade, move on from.
All right. Well, let's begin the counting exercise. I think Falk.
Yeah.
I think Shen.
Yeah.
Joseph.
Yeah.
Are we counting Fabry?
He's on the roster, so yeah.
I wonder if they trade Sonny. I'll put Sonny there. That's 5. I think they move one of Cairo or Thomas, 6.
Did you say Shen?
I said Shen.
Okay.
I don't know about Bennington. I'm hesitant to put Bennington
I don't think Bennington's going anywhere.
I think that's where I would cut it off.
What about Suter or Bukestad?
We can throw Suter in there. I haven't seen his name anywhere. That's what makes me hesitant. So
He's been injured too.
Yeah, I'm going to say no on Suter actually for now. I don't think Bukestad's getting moved. So yeah, I'd forget it.
I'd say forget it. I don't think you're not going to see 8. 8 is way too much of a change.
Maybe most they could get up to 7 because of Suter.
Maybe you see a couple of guys not start on the NHL roster, start in the AHL if they go through waivers. But yeah, that one's too aggressive, in my opinion. Final one here. Bet it or forget it. One of Kyrou Thomas or Buchnevich will not be on the team before the start of next season.
I'll bet that.
Just one of them? Yeah, I'd forget it. If you said 2, I'd say forget it.
You can bet it?
Yeah, I'd bet it with 1. If you said 2, I would say forget it.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Because the more we get closer to the deadline and the more buzz, I'm not even sure I'll call it reporting, buzz is out there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they moved Thomas. I think they are listening, but I don't think they're getting the offer that they're going to want for him because they want to haul as they should. I think they'll be willing to part with Kyrou and Booch. I think it's just a sunk cost at this point, so I think it's 1.
Text or troll. Costin was not a bust per se.
Per se is what?
I don't even know what the per se means.
Which probably means it's a troll.
It's got to be a troll, right? They want me to go off on that. Come on, man. He's playing in the KHL right now. And then the other one somebody brought up said Zach Dean was a bust. Zach Dean wasn't their draft.
Yeah.
That was a Vegas draft. They traded for him. So that's, again, they don't typically bust when they have late picks. Imagine what happens with the 2nd or a 3rd overall pick if they get to that point. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll rewind the show today. But coming up next, how much blame are you placing on Jim Montgomery for the struggles this season? That's next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley, St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-777-7777.
That's 314-777-7777.
101 ESPN has your shot to score 2 tickets to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras, Saturday, February 14th in Soulard. The Blues Alumni Experience puts you in a heated tent right on the parade route with premium drinks, great food, live music, and most importantly, meet and greets with St. Louis Blues legends. Find all the ticket info and enter to win free passes to the Sunset Hills Subaru Blues Alumni Experience at Mardi Gras at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 app. Now listen to 101 ESPN On Demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Welcoming Bennington and Fabry back into the fray. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns with your Sports Center update, brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 7, the Blues dropping the puck with the visiting Dallas Stars right here on 101 ESPN. 1 hour earlier, our own Alex Ferrario with the pregame festivities for you. Jordan Bennington expected to be back in net, while Robbie Fabry rejoins the forward mix. Basketball as well this evening downtown. Number 21 SLU hosting George Washington. Also at 7, the Billikens immersed in a big-time winning streak. Only one loss overall on the season. And Mizzou tries to make it 2 in a row on the road, taking on Alabama at Coleman Coliseum. The Sports Center update has been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So it was a topic that we were going to bring up last week. We just never got around to it, and it's mostly because it was a question that was being asked to Jeremy Rutherford in his questions and answers mailbag over on The Athletic. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. How much blame are you placing on Jim Montgomery for the team's struggles this year? I mean, look, there's no beating around the bush. It's part of the problem, right? Your team has underperformed. There's guys that had high expectations, and they have not lived up to those expectations. You're the worst goal differential team, or tied for the worst goal differential team in the National Hockey League. You lack the offense, and the development has not been there for those top guys, the steps forward that you were asking. But, man, I always say, like, I'm not going to place all of the blame on one person or player. Like, there's a lot of blame that goes around, and I think that's the same case here with Jim Montgomery. But, man, if you're asking me for a percentage, I'm going to put it at like 5. Because what more would you have expected from Jim Montgomery? Sure, you expected them to play the way that they played at the end of the season and in the playoffs and carried it over. I take the path of that's on the players, man. The players know how Jim Montgomery coached. They just spent an entire season with him. They know what's needed to win. They just saw it get them to the playoffs and nearly beat the Winnipeg Jets. And your players did not come back prepared to play the same style. And they could never get to that same style. They lacked the confidence on the ice. And then once play actually started to get away from them, they never could grab it back. I've heard the press conferences. I've listened to the pregame availabilities. I've listened to the postgame availabilities. Everything Jim Montgomery is saying is what the Blues needed to do to succeed. Get to the front of the net, win board battles, continue to push, play physical. The players didn't do it. So some of this is on the coach to get the best out of the players. But, man, at some point, you can't keep saying the same thing and blaming a different person every year. You can't keep saying, well, the coach should be getting the best out of the players, so let's fire him and bring the next coach in. They did it 3 times. I'm not going to put the blame on a guy who has won a Jack Adams, who has consistently shown the ability to win in different organizations. I put the blame on a group of players that have yet to be able to succeed consistently from start to finish.
Yeah, I will lead by saying I don't think he deserves the biggest chunk of the pie, but I do think it's bigger than 5%. And the reason that I would say that is I will hone in on, look, he was able to somehow connect with these guys last year, right? Went through Camp Monty. He was able to get them on the same page post 4 Nations, and it wasn't like there was a ton of roster turnover in the offseason. They made a couple of moves, but your main pieces were here. I remember talking about this, I think, with Mike. You and I did a show together where we were talking about, boy, this feels like the first season where they should be able to get off to the hot start, right? Same coaches in place. The core is pretty much put together outside of a couple complementary pieces that you kind of turned over. And then they never took off. And, like, I get it. Look, this is the 3rd coach in a row this team hasn't been able to play for. It's the job of the coach, though, to get get the players on board, right, and get them to play to the style that he wants. And for some reason, he just hasn't been able to connect with them at the same level so far this year. And I would add this, too, and I've seen this a couple of times on the text line, and I saw this from Angry Dan. Now, take it as...
Angry Dan. This one should turn out well.
Take it maybe with a grain of salt. He's always angry, apparently. But I do agree with this to an extent. He said should have run training camp better with actual NHL line combinations in preseason games. Not all of them, but I do remember when we were getting towards the end of training camp, like some of the lines they had out there weren't even the ones they started with on opening night, which was a bit bizarre. You know, like early on, I wouldn't make too much of it when he was going with, hey, we're putting a young guy with a veteran. Like I don't make too much of that. We've seen that even with Berube. We saw that with Bannister. I did find that the training camp that they ran was a little weird. You wondered if he got them prepared best for the start of the season, and then they were searching for line chemistry all season long. Or they're still searching for it, I should say. But I would put that on him as well. Again, he doesn't deserve the biggest chunk. I agree. I think the players deserve the biggest chunk of what has gone wrong in this nightmare of a season for the Blues. I don't think he should be free of any blame, right? I think it's more than 5% than what he should get. He should probably be at about like 15 to 20%.
Yeah, look, I mean, any team that underperforms, the coach is a part of the problem. And it's not just the coach, it's the coaching staff. But to Angry Dan's point, show me a team in preseason that plays all of their NHL players. They don't. The NHL players don't want to travel. They have to get their prospects in. Now, the fact that he didn't play line combinations together more than one game, yeah, it's concerning. But at practices, they do two together, and then that third one's in there to see how they work with those pairs. The other one that I'm seeing pop up a lot is kind of what you mentioned there in terms of the line chemistry. Guys, I keep line combinations throughout the season. For 7 straight games, they went with Neighbors, Thomas, and Pavel Buchnevich as a line combo, and then they broke them up. For 5 straight games, they went Bergeron, Thomas, and Buchnevich, and then they broke them up. For 10 straight games, they went Buchnevich, Thomas, and Snuggerud, and they broke them up. This isn't him juggling lines every single game. Now, in-game, he juggles lines, but a Hall of Fame coach had told you guys.
I remember us, well, not us. I remember the text line yelling at Bannister about doing that a lot.
Like in game, this is what coaches do. If it doesn't look good, well, we're going to change it. Edmonton does this with Connor McDavid. The other thing that I've seen pop up here is the training camp, like you mentioned, and the D-zone coverage. Man, the training camp prep from a coaching mindset is carrying over what you just did. And from the moment that season started, the players weren't engaged. Now, you can complain about them not having the young or having the young players and not playing with the NHL roster. So be it. But they knew what it took to play. And at what point in the beginning of the season did you feel like these players were playing that aggressive style of hockey?
Now, I would argue that looks poorly on Montgomery, right? Because to me, like
but isn't it the coach is saying it and the players aren't doing it? Isn't that the players' problem?
But at some point, like I have to also say, okay, somehow my coach needs to connect with the players, right? Now, he gets the benefit of the doubt in this scenario because it is the third straight coach that this has been a problem with this core. But, I mean, everything that I'm hearing is the same stuff we heard under Bannister and Berube, and guess what happened to them? They got fired.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it was, how often was it early in the season? We haven't heard as much lately, but how often of it early in the season? Yeah, look, we weren't ready to go. We didn't start on time. Okay, well, I heard that under the 2 previous coaches, and we decided that they were part of the problem, right? Moved on from Berube and Bannister because of that. And I'm not saying they should fire Montgomery. I don't think they should, because, again, he's not the biggest part of this, but if they're not coming out on time, that's on the head coach, in my opinion. One thing, like, they bring up the defensive zone coverage that's been a problem for him all year. I know you would maybe argue that that's not him, that's Mike Weber that's running that. Well, that's the head coach who hired the assistant who is delegating to him, right? Like at some point, it's up to Jim Montgomery to make the decision that we either go to the man-to-man or I take this responsibility away from Weber or I take away the power play from Ott when Ott was here. Like, these are all things that do look somewhat poorly upon Jim Montgomery. Again, I think he's probably a good coach. Now, is he top 5 like we thought they were hiring? That I'm skeptical of. That was the big thing when we had the debate of, do you fire Bannister and hire Jim Montgomery? Yeah. I've not seen that yet from Jim Montgomery to be labeled top 5. I think he falls in with most NHL coaches. He's pretty good, and it's very hard to get the best out of players, as we've seen this season.
Yeah, and that's just, I mean, to me, the fast starts, the coach can only say so much. It's up to the players to come out ready to play. And we had somebody bring up on the text line, well, if he's so great, then why did Boston let him go? He lost the room, but he also lost the leadership. And this would be my argument towards people that are blaming Jim Montgomery. And if you look at the success he had in Dallas, the same captains are still there. Jamie Benn, Tyler Sagan, Miro Heiskanen, those guys, Jamie Alexiak there for the longest time before they lost him in the expansion draft. And in Boston, he talked about it, how Boston, like, you don't have to do much because the leadership holds everybody accountable. It was Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, it was Brad Marchand. Those guys held the team accountable. And some of the best coaches in the NHL, I'm not taking anything away from them, John Cooper, Jared Bednar, Rod Brindamore, they've got the core in place in terms of guys that take the message from the coach and relay it to every player that steps onto the ice so that they mask what takes place. And if you don't perform that well, then you're gone. And that's where I think it comes back to the players. I don't think you've got the right guys that are relaying the message of what Jim Montgomery wants them to play and why it's not working on the ice. So all of this conversation is like, we should have prefaced it. He's not getting fired. It's not happening. They've made that very clear. But I do find it interesting that there are some that put some blame on the coaching staff. And again, I do think a portion of this goes to the coaching staff because there are areas that have not been treated properly. But man, I look at this as saying at some point you have to look at the players and say, you guys aren't doing what needs to be done. We need to make changes.
Yeah, I saw someone break it down. 314 says 70% on players, 20% on coaching staff, 10% on management. I think you're probably looking somewhere around that. I would give management a little bit more blame.
I'd flip that and go 20% on management.
I would go 60% on players, probably 20% on management, and 20% on coaching.
I can see that.
I think that's what it comes down to. And the reason, some of the arguments on, it's all on the players, some of the reasons that I don't like some of them, or at least would push back on some of them is, well, if we're always going to blame the players, are we never moving on from the coach? If that's the case, I'd never see a coach be fired.
Yeah.
But there's clearly something that teams look at. And again, Monty's not there. He's not a guy that's going to be fired. There are questions, though, that will need to be asked as to, okay, what do we need to do different with whether it be the coaching staff, his assistants? Mm-hmm. What do we need to do better when it comes to how do we get these guys ready to go to start games early on in the year? What do we need to do better to get chemistry developed better in the next training camp that we have that will be a little bit shorter with the new CBA that takes place?
Yeah.
Those are all questions that they're going to have to ask themselves to kind of figure out how they can best situate the team to be ready to start the season on time.
Yeah, you take out variables. You change the coaching staff with Jim Montgomery and you change the core. And if the problems persist, then you move forward from there and make your decisions. But I think this is going to be an odd year. I think there's going to be changes, and I think we're not even having these conversations by next season. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up next, we'll rewind it here on 101 ESPN.
This is Jordan Kyrou, and it's game day on your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN.
Blues Game Day on 101 ESPN is presented by Buffalo Wild Wings, the ultimate arena for wings and wins. is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Hey, if you missed anything from our show today, you can go back and check it out up on our podcast page. Bradford and T-Bone do a phenomenal job of making that available to you. It's over on our 101 ESPN podcast page. It's simple, easy to use, and it's brought to you by the Schaefer Door Company. You can find it also on the 101 ESPN app, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. And obviously, it's up on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Our studio cams brought to you by Air Alliance Team. You can watch the podcast. You can go to the segment that you want to look at, or you could check out some of the extra podcasts as well. The Redbird Report with T-Bone and BK, College Connection with Bradford Bruns, and, of course, the Last Minute Blues podcast, myself, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango. Let's rewind it, guys, and kind of quickly recap everything we went through today. Blues back in action tonight against the Dallas Stars. Otto Stenberg won't be in the lineup. He's back in the American Hockey League, mostly paper transaction because they want him available for the AHL during the Olympic break. I think we're all in agreement. It doesn't make sense, but it also makes sense because that's just where the Blues are at right now.
Yeah, they just want him to continue to play. I think it's more valuable to play 5 games at the NHL rather than having to play the 12 that he's going to be at basically in Springfield. I know that means 3 weeks off for him. I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. It's small things, but we'll see what they look like tonight with the Dallas Stars. We'll see if there's any lineup changes. I know they got some guys that are getting close to coming back. We'll see if Monty makes any changes when they go up against Dallas tonight.
Yeah, presumably Fabry is going to check back in, and we know that Jordan Binnington poised to get his second start against this team, against which in the past he's had a lot of success. But the bottom line, Alex, 2-9 since December the 1st. Should you once again fall into an early hole against a team in Dallas that hasn't been that great itself over the past 10, 4-5-1, how do you respond downtown?
You got 2 hoops actions tonight. One of them, Mizzou on the road taking on Alabama. SLU at home taking on George Washington. Anything big on those two guys? Well, Bradford, you don't have time to explain to us why Mizzou's a team.
Okay, SLU.
That SLU game should be one that they win, right? I think they're a big favorite in that game. They should win that one easily, in my opinion. Mizzou, this is a big game, right? They survived a bad loss from being on their resume at home against Oklahoma over the weekend. This would be a big resume builder. If they can beat that Alabama team, we'll see if they end up being a top 25 team by the end of the year. They're not as good as they have been in the past. Mm-hmm. They're still a good basketball team, and they'll play fast. We'll see how Missouri handles it. My expectation is they lose tonight, but it would be a big resume builder for them if they can find a way to win.
If I'm SLU, George Washington tonight doesn't scare me overly. So, again, Friday, I think I shortchanged Dayton just a little bit. That team also just a pair of losses in conference play. That's a big one to monitor, even though it's a home matchup on Friday night. And I will just say that Alabama has been very vulnerable so far in conference play. You lost to Tennessee. You had an uninspired effort in winning by 2 over OU. I will leave it at that.
To be fair, Tennessee's better than Missouri.
Okay.
Stop trying to pull him in, T-Bone. We're out of time. Bradford, huge shout out to him for helping us today. Hopefully BK will be back with us tomorrow. For Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. I'll talk to you tonight for pregame starting at 6. The Fast Lane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.